Hello and welcome to Red Shirt Cinema Club, a weekly podcast about fandom and watching things with very old friends. We've just watched The Two Towers, a film the three of us have collectively seen about 40 times. We know we love it, and this episode is basically just an excuse for us to do impressions, read bits from the book, and occasionally be mean to Dave. Enjoy! Hello and welcome to Red Shirt Cinema Club. I am your host, slightly useless and increasingly short-tempered ring bearer Rob Pearson, joined today by rheumy-eyed, endlessly tired, downtrodden king Nathan Dighton.
Hello.
And rotting head on a spike, David Jackson.
Well, that's like one from out of my playbook.
You seriously gave yourself the ring bearer?
I called myself useless.
He is a bit of a dickhead in this film, to be fair.
Rob, he's a bit of a dickhead all the time.
Frobo.
People are only just starting to hear it in these introductions.
Look, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't think of anything. I really wanted to go to sleep, so I just
This Christmas
put it down
schedule
there.
is killing us.
I'll be Frodo.
Yes. Look, if you're playing the Two Towers in the playground, no one's picking Frodo first, are they? I could have made myself Aragorn.
Yeah.
I didn't.
No.
I'm carrying this ring and look sad.
We've just watched The Two Towers, the second film in Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy. I think I've lost count how many times I've seen this film now. I don't know how many times you've seen it
Beyond number.
I reckon at least 25 times.
I'll have probably watched it between 5 and 10 times, I think.
Yeah, I would say probably 6 times. I reckon I've seen it.
And like in the last episode, we're going to not do a rushed 90-second synopsis at the beginning, but we're going to go through the film, maybe not act by act this time. I've suggested breaking it down into character strands. So we've got 3 sort of main strands running through this film: Sam and Frodo and Gollum, Aragorn, Gimli and Legolas, and Merry and Pippin and the Ents.
Everyone's favourite story.
But before we talk about all of that, I first just wanted to dedicate a little bit of time to the intro, because I think this might be my favourite intro to any film ever. And I remember watching it for the first time in the cinema, having no idea that this scene was coming, because it's not in the books, and just having my face blown off by it.
It's an amazing way
It's
back in.
unbelievable. Like when the isn't it? Do you not
Full
agree?
stop.
Like when the camera just all of a sudden follows Gandalf as you expect. Oh, it's just a replay of what happened.
Yes.
Then the camera just goes down with him.
Yeah.
The music starts. He catches Glamdring. Oh my God, it's so good.
It's great. There is something of, and it would be a running theme of how close it gets to things where I'm like, that is from a John Woo movie, and it maybe shouldn't be in this film, but yeah, just reaching out. When did Gandalf the Grey learn to skydive? Do you know what I mean? He's like, he's arrowed himself. I'm going to have to catch up with the Balrog.
Just because Tolkien didn't specifically write it down
doesn't
mean he didn't do it.
He didn't skydive. I agree with you. I love this scene. Actually, I love it before any of that happens. But it's the elegant first bit before drones as well. That was all with helicopters and real mountains and just echoes of the great deeds that are played out in these places. And then, as you said, going into the mountain. It's always a nice trick, isn't it, to just be, do you remember this? Well, here's more. Do you know what I mean? Like, you didn't see this part of it. And who knows whether that was really the part anyway.
It's also just, for anyone who hasn't read the books, a nice little hint or a teaser.
Yes.
Maybe Gandalf isn't dead after all.
I noticed more this time that they had threaded the idea that Gandalf would be returning nicely through the stories, and I was thinking, for someone who doesn't know he's coming back, he's front of mind.
Yeah. Well, I was that person. Don't forget, I didn't know he was coming back, and I can't recall really what this time around. I thought they did a good job of going, no, it was just a dream, just Frodo's dream, and making you think, oh, I thought maybe Gandalf was coming back. I think they did quite a good job of not being quite too overt with, why are you showing me this?
I can't remember if it was at this moment or later when Gandalf's telling his own story that you have that scene of the enormous cavern with the water. Is that at the beginning or is it in the middle?
No, I think it's at the beginning.
It is at the beginning.
Yeah.
That
bit's amazing.
Unbelievable. Because I know the falling and falling and falling, and then but the reveal of it's
the vastness.
It's the trick though, isn't it? It's this look how tiny Gandalf is. That Balrog's massive, and then suddenly they're both tiny, and it looks. Oh no,
that was the inspiration for the entire scene, and I can't remember whether it is Alan Lee or John Howe who did that picture. They just did a picture of the incredibly enormous cavern with a tiny fiery speck that was the Balrog and Gandalf falling into the lake.
Yeah, that's cool.
And again, on the appendices, Peter Jackson was just like, I love this picture so much. And I thought I had to get it into the film somehow.
Good work.
So this intro, there's like a great shot of Ian McKellen on a green screen, just like lying horizontal with a massive fan blowing in his face, which I just really enjoyed.
I can't believe they didn't do this practically. I can't believe they didn't throw him down an enormous cavern.
We found an amazing cavern in New Zealand.
Well,
I'm going to throw you down there, Ian.
I remember Orlando Bloom was doing loads of skydiving when he was in New Zealand. I saw some sort of weird MTV documentary
It's so
thing.
weird, isn't it? Well, it's so, but just that when you pull something which feels slightly timeless, like the Lord of the Rings movies out, but when you put them back in, it's like, do you remember we all used to watch MTV?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what this thing is or why I was watching it. I just remember it was about Orlando Bloom making the Lord of the Rings, and he was basically just like, they were just saying, no, there's nothing to do in New Zealand, so what they do is extreme sports, and then he was just jumping out of planes the whole time.
There's nothing to do in New Zealand.
This like a thing. They're like, it's famously just like nice. This is what the New Zealanders say of New Zealand, I believe, is that there was sort of nothing to do, so they do loads of extreme sports.
Well, he was 21.
Yeah.
He was very young, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Maybe you would.
So they could have filmed him skydiving.
Yeah, right.
They filmed him surfing
Wear
instead, I
this Ian
assume.
McKellen mask.
It's like a mountain for every day of the year for probably 10 years.
Oh, that's what
There's
kids like.
loads of stuff to do.
Yeah. Oh, another mountain. Yeah. What should we do tomorrow? Another mountain. Yeah.
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 Another one? Yeah.
Or a lake.
Is there any other
swim.
thing? No, just mountains.
Anyway, thanks for talking about that intro. I really enjoyed it. Let's start how the film starts then with Sam and Frodo's journey.
Yes.
We pick up where they've left off in the Fellowship of the Ring, sort of somewhere on the outskirts of Mordor.
They get to Mordor quite quickly.
Not
don't
a
they?
nice place. I mean, they can basically see it at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
And here they can just see it again for quite a long time, and they're lost. And
It's like the distance is roughly, if you go to Dirham Park in Bath and you can see the bridge into Wales, it's about the same distance. And Wales has got the same kind of feeling as Mordor, hasn't it? So
I acknowledge that, like you were telling me an actual truth there.
Oh no, it's true. If you go up, if you
no,
walk,
you can see yes, you can see the bridge. Not that that's the same distance that Frodo and Sam had to go to get to Mordor.
it's roughly the same scale.
Yeah.
On a very clear day, you can even see the Brecon beacons.
Wow, that'd be like Mount Doom
on the horizon.
Doom.
Yeah. Pen y Fan.
Where
the ring was forged.
Yeah, exactly. If I ever had to destroy a dark Welsh ring, that's where I would take it.
You must climb to the top of Fanny Big and cast it back into the valley from whence it was forged. But yeah, very soon we meet Gollum, who is one of the main attractions of this film.
Yes.
I guess one of the big ticket selling points, especially back in 2002 when this was a huge leap forward in motion capture.
That's Dobby Erasure, surely.
I don't think Toby Jones has put on like a ping pong suit and,
no, that's true.
and motion captured
Made himself 2
Dobby
feet tall.
to the degree that Andy Serkis did here. This is very sort of like pioneering technology, I think, at the time, or at least the use of it that really catapulted this technology to the forefront of cinema.
Yes.
I remember it was, upon watching this that James Cameron realised, I could actually make Avatar now,
Absolutely.
this film that I've wanted to make all my life.
This is to blame. The thing which I think is, just watching it now, I thought it held up. You can, it creaks a little, I think.
Yes.
But it's been so long, and I think that the reason that it holds up in the way that it does is because it's special effects, which is designed to showcase and preserve the performance, and that's what it does. And who knows how much work. I remember speaking to people at Naughty Dog and about their motion capture and about how much the facial animators are doing on top of the motion capture. It's like a combination, like a hybrid of both. And obviously they're inspired by the weirdness of being able to see Andy Serkis's face still in Gollum at certain points is incredible. So they're preserving, but they're also there's this strange collaboration, isn't it, between the animators and the performer. But it's because you can see that emotion inside Gollum all the time. Still,
you can see Andy Serkis's actual spit at one point. I think it's when he's chastising Sam for his cooking.
Right,
It's just like, and like an actual glob of spit comes out. That's Andy Serkis's genuine spit.
Oh, I'm glad
which I remember he's very proud about. My actual spit is in the film.
But I would say not to just slam on Avatar. Avatar is, I don't know if we'll ever watch them on this podcast.
It's easy to dunk on Avatar. I remember quite enjoying it when I first saw it.
Technologically extraordinary. There's like a slight blandness to the film which I can't get over. But what more than that, there's almost like it's past the moment of uncanniness, and I don't really get lots from I can't remember from the avatars, from the giant blue people,
the Na'vi.
I don't really I don't know, I don't really get, maybe the performances aren't as good, or maybe they're not in as extreme situations as Gollum, but I do that there does seem to be like a barrier of sort of unreality between them, which I forget quite quickly with Gollum even now.
It's almost like you could almost call it like digital rotoscoping in a way, just painting digitally over an actual human's performance.
Well,
I think with Avatar, though, what part of the problem there is that they're in an incredibly unreal world as well. Like most of the stuff around them is also unreal. So you are just watching complete frames of computer graphics. Whereas one of the things that really impressed me on this watch was like the physical interactions Gollum has with like the water when he's like he's splashing
I was honestly
about after a
like,
fish.
I don't know how, because Andy Serkis is bigger than Gollum.
Yeah.
so how have they done this?
That was incredible. Like the water splashing about as Gollum was in it was just fantastic. Yeah. Some of the wrestling with the hobbits at different points.
He's like just clawing at Frodo's cloak as well.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I love that bit when he just sort of touches his face for sort of no reason. Like, let's not go that way. He just that I think helps, and that I think sets it apart from Avatar, because as soon as you're seeing computer generated things in a computer generated world, it's the magic is.
It's weightless and weightless.
Yeah, even though that's still amazing.
I remember saying a very similar thing about the more recent Planet of the Apes film. And I think it probably speaks to the attitude of this film in general, where it's grounded as much as it can, and they've made as much as they can. Then they do the forced perspective sets where they can. And I think that's a great, I mean, in one sense, what do I know? But on another sense, enjoying this film, I feel more grounded. I feel more immersed in the film. And I think that what a brilliant kind of starting attitude to start with. Do as much as you can in the real world, and the film will be better for it.
Yeah,
that does kind of. I wanted to ask just in general. I probably enjoyed this film less than Fellowship, and maybe less than I have done in the past before. Still enjoyed it a great deal. I'm really looking forward to watching Return of the King in case my opinions have changed, and also it sets it up in a different way. I think just overall familiarity with the story has probably led me to this point, but also maybe watching it so close on the heels of Fellowship, the Sam and Frodo story is a bleak one, and of course it's a bleak one. It's not that we're not really adventuring anymore, and I think that's probably like something that they had to grapple with as kind of storytellers.
Yeah,
and some of the decisions that they made in order to change or add drama to the story, things that I objected the most. But I don't know if there's any way to getting around. Frodo's just going to be having a hard time. But they start earlier than I even remembered, where he's basically in bad ring shape.
Yeah, I got a bit annoyed with Sam actually, because he's just like, "What's wrong with you?" And it's like, "It's the ring, isn't it?" It's like, "Yes, Sam. What do you think?"
But on the other hand, you couldn't blame Sam if he was like, "Well, Bilbo carried that ring for about 50 years, Mr. Frodo. What the hell's wrong with you?"
Good point. Yeah, he just gave him longevity.
I guess Sauron's woken up. I guess that's the big difference.
Sauron's woken up now, and he's just. Guy must be tired, mustn't he, Sauron? Just constantly looking about all the time. Is someone going to put the ring on? Please.
God's sake.
I was waking up for this every morning.
I do think that they do a good job of or maybe when the mood is lifted occasionally, it's like so meaningful. Like the moments of like levity that are super few and far between. But like the end when they're talking about whether they'd ever make a story of this, and Frodo says about Sam the Brave and whatever. It's like just a little like jewel of happiness. Is really meaningful, I think, and really hits.
I'm definitely in danger of nearly overthinking the film in terms of be, like I said, kind of pulling apart. This didn't happen in the stories in the versions of this I'm been familiar with lately, and what's been lost here, and that just knocks you straight out of. I remember loving this film, so in a way I'm sad. I want to love this film like I used to, and that was one of the moments that used to get me. And this time I was thinking, what have they done to Faramir? Yeah. Why have they done that to Faramir all the time that I should have been thinking, this is the best bit in this film that I love?
Well, I don't have a Faramir to compare Faramir to, so...
Well, I'll spoil that for you later.
Yeah, I look forward to that, genuinely. Maybe not the spoiling.
So their story goes, they encounter Gollum.
So they encounter Gollum.
Becomes their guide.
Gollum has that amazing scene where Smeagol sort of defeats the evil Gollum side of his personality, which is that famous back and forth.
Is that before the marshes or after the marshes?
I think it's after the marshes.
Just after the marshes. So the marshes...
I quite like the marshes.
I quite like the marshes. I noticed something that I'd never noticed before. The big wide shot of the marshes, you can actually see them walking across it. Tiny little specks.
This is why
I literally never noticed that
everyone
before.
should invest in their own home cinema
And a
system.
4K edition. Yes. Which I found amazing because all of a sudden I've got like a scale reference for how massive and vast these marshes are. Because before it was just a blank, bleak shot of some evil-looking marshes.
I did get the sense in this, and it's true of the world, that it is like a map that I would draw, having read Lord of the Rings when I was a kid, or in a game where they're like, especially in the next section, I guess we're talking about Aragorn and the others. They were sort of they exit one scene and they move into another and they go Rohan, and then they're tracking the hobbits next to, and then it's suddenly Fangorn Forest. Like the kingdoms are just next to each other, and it was similar with the marshes. Now we are at the marshes, a new area, and a little sign would come up on the screen, the marshes.
I did quite enjoy the frequent use of characters looking at maps throughout this film.
I really did.
Just how useful it is to constantly, because it's going to be difficult for people who've not read the books, or anyone really, to be keeping track of these. In the Fellowship, it's just they're all together, they're all just walking across the mountains, they're on an adventure together. Now all our friends are all split up, they're in different places. Where are they in relation to each other? Yeah. It's just a nice way to constantly ground you in it. Also, it teeters very slightly into why would they be and there's just someone pointing to Faramir. We're here, Faramir. Remember? Osgiliath. That's where we are. Yeah. And the orcs are coming from Mordor. There it is on the map. You can see it. That
section was the most explaining.
And we've got them coming from Rohan as well. Yeah. Saruman attacks from Rohan. That's right. That's to the northwest of us. And Mordor to the east. And we're in the middle. That's where we are right now in
You wouldn't want to forget that, Faramir. That would be bad.
Take a moment to maybe take a screenshot.
Of course, we get introduced to the ring wraiths. They come back with a great shot where everyone again who hasn't read the books will be like, "Oh, it's the ring wraiths again." Yeah, there's the shot of them just holding, and then it zooms out slowly to reveal. Oh, you didn't see this coming, did you?
We can fly
They're
now.
on dragons.
They never say what fell beasts they are, do they? But they are basically dragons.
Just fell beasts.
So, which leaves the room for some adaptations to do them really badly. They look like sort of flying horses with rubbish scales. But I think they're brilliant in this. Yeah. I've actually brought in a book today. I feel like I'm at school, but the editions of Lord of the Rings that I read when I was in my teenage years, not the first ones I ever read. And on the front cover is the...
Oh, I remember that.
Is the
My
ring
God,
wraith.
I remember that.
Yeah. And it's fell beast.
I can smell my school library looking at that.
I'm trying to think whether... so it's a John Howe illustration of... I guess it's the Witch King. He's wearing a kind of a crown. I guess he's looking... I don't know where he's looking. It might be Minas Morgul.
Is that the Return of the King?
No, it's
Two Towers.
It's Two Towers. So, but why would he be looking at Minas Morgul? Maybe I don't know. Well, where do they walk past? They don't even walk past
No, they don't.
Minas Morgul, do they? In this one. So I don't know, but it looks cool.
Maybe just the publisher just went, "That's a cool bit of art."
John, that one fucking slaps.
Yeah, we're putting that on the cover.
We're going to be using that
one. But yes, we also get introduced to Faramir, as we have talked about a lot. I think it's interesting you said you enjoyed it not as much as you have done before, Nath. I also think this is the least I've ever enjoyed watching The Two Towers, despite also really liking it still. Just because there are lots of scenes in it that as soon as they started, I've just remembered, I'm like, oh, God. God, it's this bit. I just want to get. The whole film is basically a setup for Helm's Deep, right? It's just we want to get to Helm's Deep, and everything that happens before it. This film could definitely been about an hour shorter than it was.
Well, I think that I like the scale, and there's something to be said that epicness needs a certain scale. But and I think that it's. I don't know if I'm wrong about this or naive in terms of storytelling, because I don't write stories and I've never written scripts or anything. But that one of the things I've always disliked is when there's a situation where impediments, basically, is one of my least favourite forms of storytelling. On an adventure story, anticipation I enjoy, stakes, actual action, obviously I enjoy, peril, thrills. When you want something to happen and then something is just stopping it from happening, like the Ents. Like the two things which they made the biggest changes to, as far as I could see, were the Ents took way longer to make their decision than they do even in the books. And Faramir impeding his interaction with Frodo is completely different. And I think that because they'd moved Shelob to the next film, they needed something for Frodo and Sam to do that would give them an obstacle to get past. And that became Faramir, which, I'm sure that when they were faced with... It unlocked so many other parts of the structure that who am I to say that it's the wrong thing to have done, but it did take away something.
It is interesting thinking about why they made those decisions. Again, from the Appendices, they were faced with this problem of potentially having two very climactic scenes, Helm's Deep and Frodo and Sam versus Shelob at the end of this film, and decided that it would be too much to be at Helm's Deep and then to immediately cut to Frodo being webbed up by Shelob and Sam fighting Shelob. You just couldn't do it.
That would have been a cliffhanger, I guess.
It would have been...
Because then he would have got him from Cirith Ungol in the next film.
But whatever, they decided to put that into the Return of the King, the Shelob stuff, which, meant that they had to make Faramir some kind of obstacle. And I do think, having watched the theatrical cut, I do think on this occasion the extended edition is superior. There's a lot more Faramir stuff in the extended edition, which makes him seem like less of an idiot. Like in this film, he's an idiot, till right at the end, after he hears Sam and Frodo having a nice conversation. He's like, I was wrong about you, wasn't I? Yeah, you can go. If they kill me, so what? You can go. Off you go to Mordor. But yes, you lose the scene where he's like agonizing over the ring, and he's like, I could give this to my dad.
Yeah.
Who, a chance for me, Captain of Gondor, Faramir, to show his quality. Which is a really nice line for Faramir.
Yeah, it's in the theatrical, isn't it? But it makes it...
Was it?
Yeah, it is, but it's...
I must have just completely missed it.
I think in the book it's...
Because Sam doesn't say it at the end.
Exactly. And I think that's it. In the book, there are two versions of it. And one is him... they're both sort of ironic. I think that he's... and the second one is a confirmation, is now in doing this, you are actually showing your quality. Yeah. And you take one of those away, and all you get. It reminded me a lot. There's a feebleness to the character where he's in the shadow of his older brother, and obviously he's trying to impress his father, or he's concerned about that relationship. Denethor also, we haven't seen him yet, but he is a more cartoony version. In the books, Denethor is Gandalf respects him in lots of ways, but he is struggling enormously, and he's incredibly wise. He's very dour and skeptical. In the books, he's more of a lunatic, and Faramir is kind of in hock to that. And I think you lose so much of the... And again, I may be too subtle to play out interestingly on screen, but Faramir is just really smart. He senses immediately in the book that there is something that Frodo isn't telling him about what happened with Boromir, but he's not angry. He doesn't jump to conclusions. I get a real sense of like, conflict is story from this. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes just slowing things down is. People get so angry with each other in this film in a way which kind of annoys me. Yeah, and Faramir senses it, teases out more, doesn't understand what the ring is, and I like that idea that in Gondor they don't know what the ring is. Isildur's Bane is this unknown object, and he realizes that that's what Frodo has, and then he says, well, I did say I wasn't going to impede you, and I'm not going to impede you, even though I know what this is. And there's no sense of, like, the point in this movie where his second in command comes, you know the laws of our land. It's like, what? If the ring comes specific, like a really specific law that if you see the ring, you have to give the ring to Denethor, otherwise you'll be killed. What is the law? I thought that was dumbed down to the point where I found that.
There are lots of strange little rules like that. Like, what the hell's the rule about the forbidden pool?
That's actually in the book. I don't know why.
Yeah,
if you go into this specific pool, then you die. You just have to. You be killed if you go in there.
I always assumed that was a lie that he tells.
Weirdly, it's true.
To just give him a reason.
And Nathan is now opening his copy.
Oh, good.
I'm going to read.
Well, I wanted to contrast this Faramir with the one that we get in the book. There's a couple of bits. Well, the other thing is, I understand why they've done it. That even this small bit, this is only one of their meetings, conversations goes on for several pages. So here's Faramir understanding. This is after he's interrogated him. And then he talks to Frodo, just to pick up on the tone, and he kind of comes back and says, Faramir says, I broke off our speech together, not only because time pressed, as Master Samwise had reminded me, but also because we were drawing near to matters that were better not debated openly before many men. It was for that reason I turned rather to the matter of my brother, and let be Isildur's bane. You were not wholly frank with me, Frodo. I told no lies, and of the truth all I could, said Frodo. I do not blame you, said Faramir. You spoke with skill in a hard place, and wisely, it seemed to me, but I learned or guessed more from you than your words said. You were not friendly with Boromir, or you did not part in friendship. You and Master Samwise too, I guess, have some grievance. Now I loved him dearly, and would gladly avenge his death, yet I knew him well. Isildur's bane, I would hazard that Isildur's bane lay between you and was a cause of contention for your company. And he kind of reasons things out. And then he says he wouldn't do the same. And the whole point about Faramir is that he's kind of a version of Boromir without the weight of being the first son and without the slight impetuousness that comes with, he always thought that his family should have been kings of Gondor already. And then he is, and that, I think that quality, that virtue of being able to lay aside those claims of power is enormously valued by Tolkien and is lost in the film.
It is lost in the film. I think I get no sense from Faramir in this movie that he is really what he's about. He's like a kind of like less interesting Boromir.
I think that's what you're left with.
Who is kind of falls for the same, until the end when he's like, actually, off you go. He basically, which kind of happens to Boromir as well.
Maybe that's the film version, it's like you showed the audience a similar thing, and then at the end, the decision is different.
I guess you've got to have something though. Like this is a fandom debate as old as time. Like they're holding up this sacrosanct original text by the original author, and any deviation from it, you've got to question why have they done that. And suppose they did remain completely true to Faramir in the books. All you've got is Frodo meets a nice man.
Yeah, I know.
And just has a conversation
and
with
I think
him.
that it's because we are engineered, and cinema is a medium in which action and conflict, I think that's why you get those codification of kind of script writing guys where they say these things. And Tolkien was more like, what would really interest me is a slow story about a really virtuous guy. Yeah. I'm into that. And I'll read it in Old English, that's fine.
Funnily enough, like what I thought was missing for me from this part of the movie is what I really wanted was more like talk about Boromir. Like it was the thing they have in common, and I think they gloss over it a little bit too much in the film. And I think that not that can be reason enough for Faramir to be in this movie, although it doesn't obviously introduce him for the next movie. But like I really did want that. I wanted, I was surprised I forgot that, even though we just watched the movie, that Frodo and Sam don't know that Boromir's dead because they're not there when he's actually killed. And I just thought a little bit more could have been made of that, of the fact that they're shocked that he's dead, and then maybe just talking a little bit about what happened, their adventure together. I don't know, something. I wanted a little bit more of an interaction with Faramir about Boromir, and to try and understand how, I don't even know how he feels about his brother,
I think it's it would be an interesting way of, you can create Faramir in contrast to Boromir by doing it that way. But like I said, the first time I saw these films, even then quite familiar with the books, I loved them. And if this is the cost of getting the story that we have and the version of it that we have, I'm sucking it up.
Yeah.
I'm happy to suck it up. There's also Faramir's interactions with Gollum, which are cut down quite a lot in the theatrical version. That's the other key thing that I guess happens with Faramir, is that Gollum goes from this character who has a chance of being redeemed, I guess, like the Smeagol. Smeagol, his true self is coming out. Maybe he can get over his addiction to the ring, and he's just very cruelly treated by the men. But I think in the extended version, after Faramir has let Frodo and Sam go, like Gollum's sort of like following after them, and Faramir grabs Gollum by the neck. And this is after Faramir's been like shown to be, he's a nice man. And he like thrusts him up against the wall, gets right in his face. He's like, may death find you quickly if aught should befall them. And he just throws Gollum after Frodo and Sam. And like Gollum's like, just really very sad. And it's a horrible moment. And then the next shot is Gollum sort of like slinking along. And you're sort of with Gollum and like, what a horrible thing for you to go to.
I cut you off earlier on when you were talking about that, the side-by-side thing, because I want to talk about the marshes, but the conversation with himself. And I think that of all the invention, I like, this is the reason you take swings, I think, and some of them don't pay off. And I think all the way through, Gollum, I think he's quite consistent in the book. I think obviously there is that tension of Frodo wanting to treat him with pity. I think it comes from a very slightly different place that it does in the film, where in the film the version that we have is Frodo needs to believe that Gollum is redeemable because he's going to be suffering a similar fate. And in it giving us some interiority to Gollum with that conversation, and then that paying it off at the end, and having that tension within him, it works brilliantly, I think. And one of the things I remember incredibly clearly watching in the cinema is sly, the way that they do it. Not just the kind of the special effects kind of bravura of it, but that the first couple of times, so the hobbits are sleeping in the background and the camera slides from one side to the other, and then it just starts cutting as if in a conversation. And it's funny that it kind of prefigures even... This is like an incredibly mainstream way of doing TikToks with yourself now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Gollum was there first, like just chatting to himself.
The original TikTok.
We should be nice to them. No, we shouldn't. We should kill them. I thought, and again, a way to showcase the performance of Serkis. And there is, of course, in the back of my head, there is I know authors who use subtext and they're cowards, but I don't care. I think that it's, again, for this story and this audience, without a narrator, showing the inside of Smeagol or Gollum, and giving him a sympathetic edge, and also giving some stakes to Gollum. He's not just he is ultimately irredeemably corrupted and bad, but the suggestion that he might not be is something which we'll hang on to for the next film in a bit.
Something I didn't understand from the movies, I don't think, is how Frodo knows to call him Smeagol. Is that explained?
I think Gandalf mentioned it.
Gandalf tells him a story.
In Fellowship or in the books?
He must do it in the books.
I'm not sure about the name itself, but he certainly says he was a creature like not unlike a hobbit.
Not unlike a hobbit, yeah.
I'm pretty sure Gandalf tells Frodo his original name is Smeagol.
Yeah.
So he knows from Gandalf.
Fair enough.
Like everything that everybody it's from Gandalf.
So I think that wraps up Sam and Frodo and Gollum's story. It is a bleak one.
I'm sure we'll return to them at the end.
I mean,
we can get
probably
organically
we'll come back to them at some point. But it is bleak, isn't it? They start in a bad place and they end in a bad place.
They do.
It's the middle film.
And their guide is a slinking snake who wants to kill them.
Wants to kill them and steal the ring.
Awful.
But
good luck, guys.
Taters. We forgot.
The tater scene. My God.
Taters.
Maybe the most memed bit? That and they're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
I almost laughed at that line.
Difficult. That blasted internet. The Taters is the one bit that I can remember looking at the page as a kid. And just, because I too, like Gollum, was
What's taters?
What's taters?
Potatoes.
And I remember reading that. It's spelled out potatoes.
Oh, sorry. I don't say potatoes.
Sorry, tollers.
Oh, that stew looked quite nice, though. I thought
it looked great.
They were like Yeah, there's barely any bones on them. It's like, what? You've worked magic here, Samwise.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
It's
It's like
unbelievable.
thrown in some wild rosemary that he's just found
Yeah.
on the path.
Yeah.
Lovely herbs. That
Legend.
that broth would have been really
Well, he's a gardener,
fragrant,
isn't he?
and I'd
mean,
have loved a
talking-
bowl of that.
Talking about Sam and things that we don't see again, but hopefully something which is just not seen. It's not in the films. Is that his character is a gardener, and at the end he goes back to the Shire and he helps to rebuild it. And he's given, I think Galadriel just gives him soil from Lothlorien, and it's just fucking brilliant soil.
Obviously, it is.
And so when he gets
everything elven, a special elvish rope,
special
elven cloaks.
special elven bread, swords. Yeah, he gets back to the Shire and all the trees have been cut down by the bastards. And he uses a bit of the soil and some seeds. Oh, stuff.
And it's like a
starts.
video game. It's all just
It's great.
back to being green.
Three summers. Pow.
Didn't talk about the elven cloak, the bit where they hide under the elven cloak, which
Yes.
I always really enjoyed.
I love that bit.
It's just good. It just, again, another bit that teeters on the brink of unbelievability. But then you remember, it's an elven cloak.
Exactly.
And again, it's all that, the theme of nature versus industrialization and them using essentially nature
That's true.
to hide from the evil mechanized
Are they Southrons? Who are
Mordor.
those lads?
Just Southrons or
What's the other one?
Easterlings or
I hate
whatever they're called.
People from the south and the east.
From all over the compass.
Wait a minute.
I mean, Sauron is gathering all evil to him. Remember,
Yeah, that's
Sauron
true.
has put out the cool.
Yeah.
Evil.
Yeah.
Anyone who's evil anywhere.
I identify
God's
as evil.
sake. I've got to go to Mordor now. Sauron's calling all evil.
Yeah. If you've ever ordered something from Amazon, use it, and then sent it back, you got to come to Mordor.
Yeah.
That counts as evil.
Damn.
Yeah.
Off we go then.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
On
just
my elephant.
it's so good. The camera pans down. You're like, why aren't they being spied? They're literally right there. And,
Again, I remember seeing it for the first time and thinking, how are they going to get out of it? Even though I'd read the book, how are they going to get out of this jam?
But what we don't see in the theatrical cut, sadly, is the scene with the elven rope, which happens
tugging.
really at the beginning, very near the beginning of the film, where they have to just make it down like a small ledge. They use the magical elven rope, and Samwise ties like a really good knot in it.
He's so angry with himself
And it's
at
like,
the bottom.
we can't take that rope with us now because the knot's up there. It's a damn. And Frodo just gives it a little tug, and it just magically unravels, and you get one of those little, again, almost Marvel-esque, like little nods to camera where Frodo's like, elven rope, and off they go. Oh, I love the elves. Anyway,
So does
And
Sam.
their wares.
It's the first thing he says when they leave the Shire. They look at some woods and he says, do you think there's elves in those woods?
Yeah.
No, Sam, shut up.
shall we treat ourselves to the Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas bit,
Yes.
or shall we do the Merry and Pippin bit?
Oh my, let's do Merry and Pippin.
Because we'll be done in 5 minutes, won't we?
Yeah. Well, unless let's take ages to decide. Let's have a moot.
I mean, I remember the Treebeard chapter in the book. I remember it very vividly, and having to really get through it. Like, it's full of songs.
There's so many songs. He's got songs about the order of
Yeah.
beings in Middle Earth.
I
He's
imagine,
like,
I can't wait to get to it on this
Order
read through
halflings.
that I'm doing now, because I'm hoping and expecting that I will enjoy it differently as an adult. But it was my dad who recommended the Lord of the Rings to me, and I remember telling him when I got to the Treebeard chapter, I was like, I'm really struggling with this chapter. My dad was just like, yeah, I just skipped those chapters.
Yeah.
He is awful, my dad. Like, I have memories of watching a James Bond movie with him, and it got to the opening credits, and he just started fast forwarding through it. It's just the opening credits. It's like, this is a huge bit of the film. That's what he's like, anyway. Just
Boring.
Yeah. Let's just get to the next fight. You just skip the whole Treebeard chapter. But it is tough. I mean, Treebeard also, he is by far the hottest ent, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like,
I know
all
what
of
you
the
mean.
rest of
Yeah, I
them,
think
flipping
so.
heck. And I noticed it a lot in this, watching it this time, at the end, when he's like, we have decided
Yes.
you are not orcs. There's one in the background just nodding
Yeah, I
stupidly.
saw that this time.
It just looks so stupid.
Good
The Ents-
news.
The Ents are a brilliant invention. And I do like their faces.
I do like
look,
them.
What I liked about he is the hottest, and you know he's got that main character energy.
He's not as hot as that one that's on fire.
Hey.
Another great bit.
But I did appreciate that their faces look like when you were walking in a distorted wood and you see something that could be a face.
Yeah.
They looks like those faces.
I don't think they did. I think they look way too cartoony. Like if they ever do, and they probably will at some point, remake the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I think it's definitely going to happen on
then
HBO at some point.
This is what I want to see done really well.
That's on your checklist of things we can improve.
Do the Ents.
I think these are good Ents.
Treebeard's a good Ent.
Well, remember the Ralph Bakshi Ent?
Yes,
Yeah.
but they're better than that.
Oh yeah,
They're better than that.
But they're in a different league.
Yeah.
A different tree league.
But I just think there's something so like Tolkien obviously he flipping loves trees.
Yes.
Tolkien does.
Yeah.
Loves trees probably more than anything else.
He
If we're talking about rivers, mountain,
He
things
loves the
outside,
hill.
trees are the best. And there's something just always slightly odd and uncanny and magical and sometimes scary about woods in Tolkien's work.
Yeah.
And there's like a real sort of Englishness to the woods as well. Like you can just reading a Tolkien description of a wood, you can feel yourself walking through a wood on your own, like, and it's quite unsettling. And I just want the Ents to just be a little bit more strange,
eerie,
a little bit more creepy than
That's
they
fair.
are.
They are quite cartoony. And Fangorn in general, we're told rather than shown that Fangorn is
Yes.
a terrible place. And also it's got a very hard boundary, doesn't it? It's just like,
Yeah,
here's the
I did
tree.
like that when they were like, where did they go? And it's all, oh, did you not notice the massive forest
No.
right there until then?
It's a bit like when Griemer's in the tower. Oh, we need a massive army to do that. It's like, well, look out the fucking window, Griemer. I have one right here.
Did you miss? Oh, I came in the front door. You've got these out the back, obviously. I
They
didn't
were
see
being
them when
very,
I came
very
in.
quiet while we were here in the tower.
But now I'm introducing them to you. They can make their noise.
His little candle's gone out as well.
So we finished the Ents then. That's
We haven't talked a single bit about Merry and Pippin. There's lots of stuff from the extended cut I am glad is not in the theatrical cut with Merry and Pippin.
Really?
There's one where they're drinking like a...
Ent wash.
They're
Is that what it's
drinking
called?
like
Ent draft?
a bowl of Ent draft or Ent water. And they're sort of like... It's Pippin who's growing. He's drinking water and he's making weird Ent noises. And he's just growing.
I'm
And
afraid
Mary's
to
like,
say-
oh... No, that's not in the book.
That
is it?
does happen in
my
the book.
God.
because and you know when I was talking a while ago and we had I think I was having this discussion with myself really, but about the idea of stature in Lord of the Rings and
Yeah.
there being something about men who are just tall and they live for ages and they're just great big men, and there is that kind of great personage thing, and that's why halflings are small, and it's ironic that they're so useful. But I think when we were talking last time about Merry and Pippin going into the service of the Lords, which will happen in the next film, the fact that they get bigger because they drink the Ent, I think it's Ent wash. I'm not sure.
Ent wash.
I can't
that
remember.
sounds even worse.
It does. Sounds like a drain.
It should just be called Ent wine.
It should. Yeah, but and the fact that they're bigger. So when they meet Sam, he's just like, bloody, wow, you guys are literally bigger. What's going on? And it's like they're coming into they're able to have more of a mark on the world of men because they're slightly bigger. Or maybe it's just a slight holdover from the kind of children's story element.
It's like they've consumed Ent pathogen DNA,
Yes.
like in Alien.
Yeah,
And now
yeah.
we've just got a Hobbit Ent hybrid
That's what-
creature has been born.
Shortly after the end of Return of the King,
Yeah.
Mary's chest started to crack.
Yeah.
And just a wooden, screaming halfling tears out of him.
Well, I'm glad that didn't happen.
I'm extremely... Actually, just thinking about Alien
Yeah.
again has made me very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's not think about that. Let's think about Merry and Pippin, and they're very different in this movie.
To
aren't
each
they?
other, are they?
Which
Which one's Mary?
Mary is the English one,
That is correct.
and they are. But I mean, there's zero. They have zero fun in this. Even like I said, Sam and Frodo managed to find a little bit of levity now and again. These guys are just serious, and I guess they are having quite a seriously bad time at the start of the movie. And
Yeah.
I do enjoy the ingenuity of them. like and I think it's believable that they hear what the orcs are saying.
Yeah, not idly.
They kind of infer that their friends are coming for them, and and drop the lead to DeLorean, which I love as well. There's those little things; they're so cool.
Yeah, a little bit of intra-department politics as well with the orcs, like the lads from Mordor and the lads from.
This is a great bit. That was a great bit.
That's a lovely little.
Also, I want to bring up this. It's become a bit of a meme. Like,
I thought you were doing an orc then. You sounded like.
Do you know what? Can we have a fucking moment for how good all orcs are in, and I think it's come out more in this film than any other.
Yeah,
the way they talk, they've got bits of metal on their head. They're disgusting.
Their faces are amazing. The one that chases them into Fangorn looks so bloody good.
I feel like I've seen them all before in some like horrible dream. They're like familiar to me for some reason.
All of it. What about their legs?
Sharp
goes.
And
they look tasty.
And all of their voices, like there's an author. I don't know why it fits. Probably awful prejudices inherent to me, but like yes, they would all sound like Cockney villains from some story in the 1920s. Yeah, I think they're flipping brilliant. But I wanted to say, I reject entirely the internet discourse about meats back on the menu, boys. Oh, do they have menus, do they? If you went into the fucking inn at the Prancing Pony,
there's loads of menus there.
Of course they're going to have a menu. Well, what's on, Mr. Barleyman? What can I have? Or whatever the hell his name is. And he would say, well, do you know what? I've got a Knob, go and get the menu. That's what he would say. If there's more than one item, if you can have more than just broth or bread, it's a fucking menu.
I would love to see an Uruk-hai in a tavern. What's on the menu?
Pints.
Pints.
This is a vegetarian establishment.
I also like the wit. They've got a little bit of wit and humour about them.
It doesn't need legs.
It's a brilliant line. Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys. It's so good.
And then they just tear it to pieces. Like entrails are just flying in the air. I really got a sense again in here, just the joy that Jackson and his filmmaking collaborators have taken for almost 20 years at this point in just gore and special effects and some of the practical stuff and the skin of the orcs. Like sometimes a few of them are wounded and it just pus comes through, and the detail and the love which is taken in making them look disgusting is amazing.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, just about Jackson's heritage and it really coming all together in the orcs. They're just just perfect.
Guts.
I'd love that maybe that's the priority. We need someone who's really good at making disgusting looking things. We just want to make sure the orcs are really gross.
Yeah, they do.
Everything else, if he can do it, that's a bonus, but he's got to get the orcs right. Peter Jackson's our man.
Jackson, isn't it? It's Peter Jackson. We've got to go get him.
But Merry and Pippin, no fun in this
I think
movie.
Famously they spent the majority of the filming for this just sitting in that rig, the Treebeard rig.
Yeah.
And days and hours on end, just like they had to be passed up like cups of tea in their lunch because it was too much of a faff to get them down from the Treebeard rig. So they just had to have their breaks sitting up there in Treebeard's hands.
Yeah.
So it must have been a miserable filming period for them as well.
Yeah, I think it must have been, and quite lonely in as much as it's just the two of them really. Like, I don't know if there's anyone in the Ent rig even. They're just no one to talk to. All
Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli just romping over New Zealand.
Exactly, they're all over the country.
Yeah.
And, where are we again today, Peter?
Yeah.
You're in the rig, lads.
We're in Studio 5 again.
Studio 5
today.
The rig.
Yeah, it is warm at least. But they're just different characters, aren't they? They're not compared to the Fellowship.
This is what I was going to say.
Until right at the end of the Fellowship.
Obviously they're plotting out all of the movies and the arcs of the characters, and slightly frustrated with them in Fellowship. It's paying off already because you're seeing the seriousness which is being forced upon them, and then them having a part to play in this story and making small decisions.
But you do see more of the goofiness in the extended cut when they're drinking the Ent wine.
Yes.
They are just...
I'm glad they cut that out.
How tall are you? I've always been taller than you. Don't think so. I'm 4'11" now.
Yeah.
Or this kind of thing.
I will say, even though it's actually one for the next film, I was on Lord of the Rings memes, Dave. I was trying to send you some of the memes that we discussed, the meme types that we discussed in the Fellowship, and one of them was just the setup for this. It was like a short video. Was Gandalf, Pippin, don't touch the Palantir. And then it was Pippin, and it was someone's interpretive gymnastic floor routine where they had a ball.
I've seen this.
Very good.
And the thing is, the longer it went on, the funnier. It was like 30 seconds. It was like,
I'll take that, Pippin, my lad. Anyway, let's get on to the good bit.
Wait, we haven't finished yet.
Haven't we?
Come on.
Ents. We haven't talked about the Ent moot. They haven't even mooted. And they haven't gone to Isengard.
Merry and Pippin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
they're part of
this
it.
is their
They-
strand.
Yeah.
So they convince Treebeard by sneakily walking him through a wood, and then he gets extremely agitated.
Yeah.
Words don't make any difference to the Ents, and then we get the Battle of Orthanc.
It's lucky all the Ents apparently had been walking in the same direction because they were very
right
close
behind.
to Isengard.
Maybe they're
when
very
they-
quick.
when he makes his Ent noise.
It's a great
but
noise.
it's
Great
a
noise.
really
that.
good noise.
Did I do it? Was that it? I can't even remember.
Do you know, it's not bad. You need to see the face as well, I think, to get the full effect. I think I was really struck by the horror of the Ents smashing up wooden towers. And I was thinking,
Yeah.
that's like me smashing up a tower made of limbs.
That's true. They're not trees,
Must
though.
be horrible.
I guess they are made of wood.
They are made of wood, though.
I guess they are made of
And they look a lot like trees. But
They do.
I hear you.
This was my
they're
cousin.
tree herders. Yeah.
Many of these trees were my friends.
Yeah.
I do like
They
that
had voices
line.
of their own.
They have voices of their own is a great line.
It is a good
And
line.
I actually wanted to say that one of the things I appreciated about this film was that it had more moments for poetry. I felt like Fellowship I enjoyed probably on the whole more, and there's more that I love in it, but it was extremely fast. It felt hasty all the way through. And this, even though it skips things that I like, and I wish that they'd spent more time with Faramir and not made him shit, there are abstractions and just moments which remain in here which do slow things down, but which I think really, really add to the kind of texture and colour of the films. And that line is a really good example. They had voices of their own. What does that even mean? It's really nice.
Well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Yeah, it's great. It's a really,
Sad
really good
now.
line. I just because we're at the battle made me think of Saruman and how I really like early in the movie where you
think you
see
mean
him among the
Araman.
people just stirring up.
Southron
being a shit stirrer,
Great. But then at the battle, he's just like useless in his balcony, just sort of going, "Oh no, oh dear, oh dear."
Oh, I ain't planned for this at all.
It's like, have you not got do something?
His
Saruman?
magic's all in his voice.
It is.
Well, he's lost his voice at that point.
he
could
has lost his voice.
I was thinking he could take down a mountain. He should be doing something.
I think the resolves of the Ents and how old Treebeard is makes him less susceptible to the power of Saruman.
I enjoyed
directly.
that the Treebeard as well, talking about Saruman, and he used to walk among the forest, and he became obsessed with wheels and.
I love
something.
that they hate
Mind of
wheels.
metal.
The
Yes, a
oldest,
mind of metal.
well, I guess,
Wheels.
I guess
Really
the
good.
oldest technology is fire, but I love this. It is in the book, and it was on the radio play that the fucking Treebeard going on about wheels, and I was like, mate, are you? And then I was like, no, that's fair. Wheels are the big. That's where we started to go wrong.
Wheels.
Wheels.
In the again in the appendices, when they're talking about Tolkien, they talk about his distrust of technology and wheels. Wheels is just does not like wheel. He likes trees, doesn't like
What's the
wheels.
alternative to wheel?
Did he never take a train? I bet he liked wheels then.
Maybe he didn't. I can imagine him liking cycling.
Cycling, yeah, surely. How's he
Some
getting
nice
around this?
cycle routes around.
Yeah,
around
definitely.
Oxford. But what about should we talk about the Battle of Orthanc when we talk about Helm's Deep, because they're cross-cut very nicely.
I guess we could talk about just the final battle in total at the end.
All right, yeah.
But yeah, it's good when the Ents will do their march, isn't it?
Yes.
We
That's
could all
great.
be dying.
Yeah. We may go to our doom.
Yeah,
That's
it's all very
another
quickly decided that, isn't it?
last March of the Ents.
After everything else, right?
It
We
is.
will be going. Actually, no, we are, and this might be the last time we ever do anything. Come on, guys.
Yeah, let's go.
Addendum. Let's
For
fucking do it.
trees.
Anyway, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas's adventure.
Love it.
Which starts with them chasing the Uruks and Merry and Pippin.
Yeah.
Trying to rescue Merry and Pippin from the Uruk High. But quickly becomes like the main central thrust of the film, I guess. So I guess the first act of them is up until they encounter Gandalf, I would say,
Yes.
in Fangorn Forest.
I guess so. I actually like those scenes. To break it down even further, I love the scenes of them just running.
Yes.
Before they even
Yeah.
meet the riders from Rohan, before they meet Éomer.
I wanted to ask you guys whether you appreciate Gimli's comic relief, because I really do.
There's quite a lot of it in this, wasn't there?
There
More
is.
than
I like it.
More than I
Fine
could
line.
remember.
I think that they show him being very competent, which I like. They need that balance when he does exchange some crosswords, I think, with Éomer in the book, and he does that here as well. I quite like that. I like that he can stand his. I don't want him to be a figure of fun for everybody.
No.
For us maybe, but not for everybody.
Well, yeah. As a larger man, I feel like I feel like I've got an affinity with him, and I like the way he's self-deprecating around his friends. I think it's quite good, and
I do like how you see regular wide shots in this with Aragorn and Legolas clearly outstripping.
yeah.
Well, it won't be John Rhys Davies. It would have been,
I doubt,
his scale double in those wide shots. And then the next shot, he's caught up with them again somehow.
Yeah.
Either Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn have just let's just wait for Gimli to catch up a little.
And again, I was just thinking, Legolas surely could just be like way ahead. He's just basically walking. He's just like, he's so long.
Aragorn would beat him, I reckon.
What? He doesn't even weigh anything. He can stand on the top of snow.
I don't think you can get away from the hierarchy of elves.
Yeah.
Man.
He's got his rope. He's got his bread. He's got his
Even with the
His
bow.
special binocular eyes.
Aragorn's
what do you-
got all
elf
that
I
heavy
see?
armor and stuff.
Elf I see. Hold down R1 for elf vision.
Yeah. They're actually just the same as your eyes. That's the one thing we didn't improve upon.
Aragorn's got Witcher senses, though, hasn't he?
Oh,
like,
the tracking.
He can just listen to the ground
Yes.
and hear them. But then he can.
A hobbit fell
He's
here.
tuned into nature so well that he's just brilliant. He can, just hear and feel and sense where things have been.
God, it
where
must be
they're
a
going.
nightmare. It must be a blackbird landed here. You can just see the whole history of the
He
world.
ate 5 berries.
So I
Pulled
really
them out.
I really liked. We were talking about the whole. It's Tolkien's love of kind of those epic poems and the idea of songs and sort of being in a song. It's brought up again in this film, being like what you aspire to. And I love the idea. And maybe they say it out loud in Fellowship when they're about to hunt the orcs. They're like, yeah, they'll write a song about this and it's gonna be brilliant. And then you get a sense of, when you read some of those old poems, people do stupid stuff or things that you're like, it didn't happen, mate. And like Gimli at the beginning saying, was it 3 days and nights with no rest?
Yeah.
Just been like, no, you haven't.
No food, no rest,
You've had
and
a
no
better
sign of
sleep.
our quarry but what bare rock can tell.
And they'd be dead if that happened. So, but that is the kind of thing that would happen. So I like that. And I like the shots, obviously, are where to deploy the shots of New Zealand, obviously throughout all the time, but then ostentatiously for these, like you said, if you're stuck up a tree, you're like, oh, where are they today?
Yeah.
And not even, I guess the scale doubles getting a tour of
Yes.
New Zealand, but I don't know.
There
if
was
John
the
Davis
there was
is
the
into.
there's the great sunrise shot, which famously they had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning for, just to get that one shot of them
worth
running
it.
past that sunrise, which looked amazing.
It's worth it. And it made me think the big difference between filmmaking now and then is that so much of that would be bullshit. So much of it wouldn't be real. It
Yeah.
would be, and so much, even just the fact that they had to drive. I know it's stupid. Drive a helicopter, fly a helicopter up mountains instead of just getting drones to do it. And drones look fantastic. I've got no real problem with that. But just the idea that if you've got a helicopter, you're going to be dropping the people off as well. Like, if that was now, I don't even know. I just imagine. I don't even know. And this is my problem with a lot of it. What's real and what isn't. And I'm sure that not all of this is real. Like, I know that Helm's Deep isn't real. All right.
Okay.
But
They made like a really good miniature of it though. Like
Exactly.
a large miniature. So there is a real physical thing
large
being
miniature.
filmed.
yeah, right.
It's not all just.
But in
It
terms
actually
of-
is real. It's just very, very small.
in terms of the landscape shots.
It is.
I like how much, and just you kind of go, well, there's been an enormous amount of physical, grounded effort to find these places
Yeah.
at these times of day, and I really appreciate that.
Well, the thing I don't keep banging on about the appendices, but Peter Jackson's philosophy throughout was to approach this as if these events had happened in the past, which I think is quite poetically mirrors Tolkien's ambition to create his own mythology. But Peter Jackson treated it, I guess, went one step further and treated it as if they were telling a a historical drama.
Documents.
Like, this actually happened, and we need to make sure we're going to go and film it in the actual places where it happened, and we need to make sure we get it as close to what actually happened as possible. And that approach to just then making everything as physical and real as possible in terms of the locations, in terms of the landscapes. Like, we'll get onto Edoras in a bit, which is probably the most astounding thing I think they've done in the whole trilogy. Literally made it.
Yeah.
Literally made Edoras.
It's kind of crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Well, how much of Edoras did they make?
The bit on the top of the hill.
Right, okay.
Like, the village around it, I think, is
because I
CG.
could definitely see that was not there yesterday.
Hello, internet. Well, how much
I
did they
just
make?
wanted to clear that up because yesterday I was pretty sure I saw some CG.
Theoden's Hall on the top
Yeah.
and the surrounding buildings was real.
Fantastic.
So the first time they meet the Riders of Rohan,
Yes.
that is the next, that to me, before they meet Gandalf.
Yeah.
That's the first step in their journey. I like that scene. That's all I've got. That's all I've got to say about it. Really, I like Éomer. I like Carl Urban.
I just like their really just in tune change of direction.
Yeah.
When Aragorn's like, Riders of Rohan, what news from the mark? And Éomer's just like, what, did I hear something? Yeah, I did. Come on, guys.
Around we go. Wheel about.
Do the turn.
Everyone point their
Great.
sticks at them.
There's some really good horse riders employed in the making of these films.
Oh, I bet.
And I really appreciate how good they are as well. Just like most of I think that's pretty much just a shot of all real horses in that shot as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's the kind of thing which I love that. I mean, the ridiculous cost and expense and trouble to go and,
Yeah.
but you know, it adds a level of
But
authenticity. to it.
if technology, advances to a degree where you literally can't tell,
Yeah.
will it? How I'm just
Well,
interrogating
if I
how important it
can't-
is.
If I can't tell, then I won't be able to tell.
Okay.
But then I will trust nothing, and all joy will leave me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid we've just spied your future.
Yeah, well, it's
You've
all about-
teleported.
it's all about
this
future.
discussion again.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's an exact replica of you, does it matter if it's not the real one?
It would to me now, yes.
Yeah.
And if I was a horse, no, that's not what we're talking about.
Was this Carl Urban's first role? Do we know?
I don't know. I'm not sure if he was
Because
on.
he seems very young. Obviously, I've been watching The Boys. He's in that, and
Yeah.
he's not so young now. That's how time works. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just.
I think he was coming up for 30 in this. Yeah, I think he's.
because he is from New Zealand.
Yeah,
Right. So
he is. Maybe he was just there, just grabbed it.
Yeah.
You'll do, mate. And you know, it's funny how little he looks like himself because he's so he's just got very dark hair.
Yeah.
Normally, and he's extremely blonde with long blonde hair in this.
Yes.
I think he's great. Of the two kind of new men, I guess it's Theoden as well, but like the young men of action, Éomer and Faramir. Éomer is by far and away the best presented in this film.
Yeah.
I think Faramir is, and I don't even blame. I can't remember the guy. Do you remember the guy's name, Rob?
Who?
Plays Faramir?
David Wenham.
And I do not have any ill will towards David Wenham. I don't know. I think he's been handed a big pile of shit. But Éomer's great. And again, like in it is the more sort of refined, nuanced, not stuff I probably wouldn't enjoy if I hadn't really loved the Lord of the Rings films and then decided to go further and further. But the little exchanges between Gimli and Éomer, and they talk about Galadriel, and Éomer kind of insults him, and Gimli's like, it's a show of Gimli's character as well, that even as a dwarf he's like, actually I won't have you saying that about Galadriel. And then there's some crosswords, but then later when they become friends, there's like a real, again, like a virtue and something to enjoy and celebrate about good people coming together to do good deeds. It's like, it's old school, isn't it? And I guess you get a little bit of that with the Let This Be the Hour That We Draw Swords Together, that kind of vibe later on. But yeah, I think Éomer and Aragorn really specifically are just excited about them. At some point we might get to have a fight together where we're against somebody else, and that's cool. So all of that was going on in my mind during this scene, and I still think that what we get is pretty good. And then they carry on.
They do.
I do. Yeah.
And where do they go? I guess just
Well,
cleaning up some
he
orcs.
uses his Witcher senses. That's the point. Hobbit Slay here, and another one here,
No, I meant the Riders of Rohan.
Oh,
Where
just,
do they
They
go?
just carry on their rounds of being banished.
Just tidying up.
Yeah.
Even though the king said don't tidy up.
King said not to kill all the orcs, but let's just do it
Let's just
anyway,
do it
lads.
anyway. He's
Really
banished
Been
us
banished
now.
now, so we're just like they've gone rogue, I guess. The rogue Riders of Rohan,
Yeah.
they do. They have.
the Riders of Rohan.
Yes. And then we do
That's
get,
it.
Aragorn's kind of detective scene, which I do really enjoy and completely
And the
buy.
bit where he kicked the helmet.
I can't believe you've mentioned it, Rob. You had to mention it.
I was very nearly considered last night, just leaning over to you and going. I thought, let's not do that.
I had to watch. I did watch it this time, just thinking about him breaking his toe and thinking
That
he
poor
carries
guy.
on professionally.
Maybe that's what the scream's about.
Yeah,
Ah!
that's my toe. And then Fangorn Forest, and they meet Gandalf, and I take umbrage with the fact that Christopher Lee is voicing the first lines.
Oh, I'm into it.
I'm not a fan. It
I
annoys
think
me.
is both Ian McKellen and Christopher Lee
Yes.
at all times.
But they're clearly
But
like
there are certain lines
They
where
fading
put the
it.
slider up and down.
They're
But
fade-
Dave, can you think of a thematic reason why they might have got Christopher Lee to do the line?
a thematic reason.
Yeah.
Well, because they. What do you mean? Everyone thinks that the White Wizard is they're talking about is Saruman, so we're supposed to
he
think.
is Saruman.
Well,
What do you
this is it in the order of the world. Gandalf has been brought back to Middle Earth to complete his mission, but also he now has he is the version of he's what Saruman should have been.
That's what he says. I am Saruman,
Oh.
or rather, Saruman as he should have been.
So he's been
Did you say that in the
elevated.
movie?
I think he says it in the extended cut because I've got I can hear Ian McKellen
We
saying
weren't watching that
No.
one.
It's amazing how we're responding to these films, and so much of what we're responding to is the extended version, the book,
Yes.
the audio, like so
Well,
like
I'm
stuff
not.
we've not.
Yeah. Yes. Well, no.
But the idea being that there is like a vagueness about unless you read loads and loads of like Tolkien's notes and stuff, but they're about the order of being that. So what are they, Maya?
The Maya, yes.
So that and the wizards are the Istari, and they're a certain order of being non-mortals sent to Middle Earth to oversee and shepherd things, and within that, Gandalf is grey and is of a certain rank, and Radagast is brown, and there are some blue wizards somewhere, and with the failure of Saruman, in an unknowable way, Gandalf's overlords have sent him back. So he is Saruman.
Yes, but all
From
of that is lost in the movie, in the
From a
theatrical
certain point of view.
cut.
Well, that's why the voice is there to give you. a
But the
little-
voice is also there because we are led to believe several times that we think we're going to see Saruman. In fact, those characters think they're going to see Saruman
Yeah.
because
they've
they're
tricked
like
us.
it's just a fun reveal, isn't it? It's just fun.
Well,
But-
they're near Orthanc. He's got white robes. He's got Saruman's voice, and he deflects all of their
exactly.
Yeah, I can see that.
So my point is, that
It was a trick then.
Yes, it was just a trick, and sometimes I it's fine, but it was. I guess as someone who's seen the movie many times and knows that it's Gandalf, I was like, stop using the voice. Don't use Christopher Lee's voice. It's cheeky. We know it's Gandalf. Let's just crack
I've
on.
always been interested in him saying, "Yes, Gandalf." That's what they used to call me. Like, does he? How much have you forgotten, Gandalf? Because
Yeah.
suddenly he's like, right, we've got to get going. And it's like, well, you didn't forget where you were or what your to-do
He's
list.
I think Gandalf is just having a great time, isn't he?
Is it?
Throughout the entire trilogy.
Well,
he's just having fun.
He does
And he's
fight a
like, "Oh, this
Balrog
bit-"
and die.
Yeah, but he's still having fun, isn't he? He's like, oh yeah, I've not been. There are some foes against which I have not yet been tested. And he says that at some point, clearly hoping that he does get tested against
flexing
them.
with his
I'd
stuff.
love to fight a Balrog. Yeah.
I think I could take that bad boy.
But he's just having a bit of fun with Legolas. Yes, that was. I'm now going to reveal what my name is now. It's Gandalf the White. He's just. He's loving it. He's loving the whole thing.
It does also, for Rob and I, probably, it is it's the antecedent of several instances of supposedly weak, infamidable wizard characters revealing their power and their true nature, which has happened in so many series.
So good. He's
You're
doing
like-
it deliberately as well when he's like, Theoden, I'm just going to wear the grey cloak. I release you from the spell. I'll go within my way. Again, in Dragon Ball, this happens so much. It's like a character who's just powered up. It's like, I won't go with my full power just yet.
Yes,
And now I will. Oh, that's
I'm not
great.
even using my full power.
He's got white clothes. Oh God, he's found a laundrette.
I hope this spell doesn't work, and I hope he laughs at me and calls me Gandalf the Grey, because then I'm going to take
be
this
great.
robe off and reveal the white underneath.
He still thinks I'm grey.
I like the inscrutability of it. I like that, and even the story with the Balrog, which we should mention. It's so good, and the description is there's John Borman, who I mentioned maybe in a bonus episode, but who had made Excalibur, the English director, and was interested in making Lord of the Rings before that, and lots of his work then went into Excalibur, and he was talking about the difficulty of filming Lord of the Rings, and he mentioned this scene specifically. What is it that they every day was like the life age of the earth?
Every day was as long as a life age of the earth.
And they fell, and there's a description of how long they fell, and he just quoted that and then said, and that's quite difficult to put on film.
Yeah.
And it's true that there is a sense that Gandalf has been has experienced something which is inexplicable to mortals, and has now come back and comes from a place, and that, I guess, it's the weirdness of like the Silmarillion and all those sort of quasi-religious writings and the ordering of the world. Then it makes me think, well, how much is Gandalf aware of that veil? How much is he really? How present is he? Or is he thinking, oh, I'll die here, I'll go back to Valinor, wherever the fuck it is. How much the dealings of Middle Earth are really the most important thing to him, and also Sauron, who is a higher order of being that's been corrupted and is now wreaking havoc. Or I don't know how much of this is Tolkien sort of working out of his understandings of religion. He's a very religious person. I don't know. So that's where I kind of, and almost in a way, I want to let that go, that stuff, because I want to believe completely in the importance of this story and the importance of these characters, and the idea that there's like a forever realm behind them which isn't subject to these things that the elves are retreating to. I've never really, and I quite like the mystery. I don't want to know obviously the exact, well, I filled out a form, Merry and Pippin, and I got to come back, and then they gave me my white cloaks instead of, I don't want to know all of that stuff, obviously. But
I hope they never explore it.
Oh my God, I seriously hope they never do. But then even just knowing that stuff exists, and we were talking about this before, that some fans talk about this stuff and that's the level they're experiencing it on. And I'm like, I know bits of it, maybe half of it, and it's sort of half on my mind.
Have you read the Silmarillion before?
No, never. No.
Give it a read. I can't remember where I read it, about a week or so ago, and I don't know whether this is actually in the book, but when Gandalf and the Balrog, when he's recounting his battle with the Balrog and how he falls into the lake, apparently both he and the Balrog sense things living in the lake that are even older and fouler than them. And the Balrog flees. The Balrog flees up the mountain, and Gandalf does too. And apparently both Gandalf and the Balrog were so disturbed by what was living in the lake.
That's great.
And I just love, I love that.
That's almost Lovecraftian.
Yes, yeah. Like something in the lake of Moria, right at the bottom of that mountain that's
just been
there since
older.
Time immemorial, just old and unknowable.
There's
and
that
horrible.
amazing line from the Balrog fight as well. I
smote his ruin on the mountainside.
Oh, that's great.
I love how they're able to deliver lines like that in this film and not have them sound shit. There's like, Aragorn says, not idly do the leaves of Lorien fall. Try and deliver that without sounding like an idiot. But he somehow manages it. It's so good.
What?
What the hell?
That's a great line. What I like about that line is Tolkien talked loads about his use of...
I threw down my foe and smote his ruin on the mountainside.
That he talks, and I can't remember if they changed that line from the book or not, but he talks about the way that he speaks... how did he phrase it? Not anachronistically. No, I can't think of the words. It's too early in the morning. But just used old constructions of English deliberately. So there was one really specific one from Helm's Deep, actually, where his publisher, or maybe the American publisher, had queried. He was like, and then Tolkien, because he's who he is and a professor of English, I think had written him multi-sided essay saying, here's exactly why I've used these, and I could say it like this, and I'm not. And one of them was helms they wore, and whatever, staffs and pikes, helms they found and pikes. And it was like, obviously I wouldn't say that in English, but the reason I'm doing it is because it gives a sense of, without being inauthentic, and I'm not doing the full way because I want my audience to understand it. Here's your version. It's rubbish. And then here's my version. And I love that you get things like, smoke who's roaming on the mountainside. It's fucking cool. And I think
cool.
The other thing that me and Rob have experienced is wading through 30 or 40 years of writers trying to copy that style, and it can be bad. It can be really bad. And when you go back to Tolkien, he knows it's a construction and it's not the same as, but there's a degree of authenticity and just insight and expertise to it, which I think you will almost certainly never find anyone. I don't think that people study English in the same way that people did in those universities at that time. English literature has moved on. The study of Old English and English language, and the degree to which he was an expert in languages, is extraordinarily unusual.
So Gandalf saves Theoden. We get to meet the real Theoden, finally.
Yes.
Who recognises Eowyn and says, I know your face.
I know.
And then he learns that his son has died. Theodred has died, and that's a very sad scene.
I thought it was a great scene.
Very good.
I thought it's so well acted.
Oh, the one outside on the mounds.
Yeah, with Gandalf.
It's fucking brilliant.
Bernard Hill, he's unbelievable. I think his finest hour comes in the next movie.
Yes,
but
same.
But still just great in this.
He is great in this, and that scene there was a few moments in Fellowship where I thought that the themes of Tolkien's work were being just wonderfully, and authenticity aside, just wonderfully kind of represented and explored, and this was one of those. I'm not sure this scene happens. I know some of those words are in the book, but there being the barrows and just the lament of about all of it, that he doesn't want to be the last of his line, that he's failed because his son has died, and that also that it's just fucking unfair that all this stuff has happened during this time, and the weight that he feels of responsibility to get up and do it, and also the symbolism of that he, like men in general, is just, he's sort of faded, and his power isn't what it could be, and his influence isn't what it once was. Great scene.
He stands alone. All his friends have abandoned him, or so he thinks.
Cries.
Yes. Yeah. I like that everyone calls him Theoden, king, as well.
That's exactly
right.
It's not King Theoden, it's Theoden King. So why have you done that, Tolkien? But it does sound cool though, doesn't it?
I don't know exactly why, but I liked it.
There's like a patheticness, isn't there, the first time someone shouts, "Hail Theoden King," after he's just let Grima go.
Yeah, it's great.
And he's still just a bit weak and feeble and hunched, and the wind is just battering everyone, and there's just a scattering of peasants, just like old, weak, hungry peasants kneeling in front of him, and you're like, what are you the king of?
Yeah.
It's great.
Nothing.
And they're hoping for something from him. You can sense that sort of like they need something from him, need him to be a king. Like
I mentioned it in the bonus episode, but these scenes are, and I like them, and they're way more heightened than they are in the book, where the idea is that playing on those themes of sort of weakness and just the burdens of kingship, Grima and Saruman's just, through his agent, has used his ability to sort of poison, and here it's again you kind of get that Jackson kind of body horror, just like his nails are just so horrible, and he's got some brown something in the corner of his mouth. He's just so old.
His fingers look painful. Like they're like
clawed,
inflamed, and
he's got massive fat sausage fingers.
Yeah, they look like they
thick.
They pop if you
grey
prick
nails
one, and his horrible nails. Yeah,
it is great. He doesn't do subtlety, Peter Jackson, does he? But
this is the time.
I do like how he just vividly paints the internal struggle of characters just on their faces quite often, and just on their bodies, and just Grima as well. Like again in the appendices, I think they're talking to Carl Urban's talking about how when he first walked on set, and he's like, which one of these guys is the bad guy? He just looks so slimy and evil. It's amazing.
Brad Dourif, man, and we've obviously friends of the pod will know that Brad Dourif is one of our favourite characters from Alien Resurrection. Basically, resurrected for this film. That scientist is basically Grima. Oh, it's so beautiful. That was more Trump. And the scene where Eomer is just saying, when did Saruman buy you, or how much was it? And then he just looks at
what
Eowyn,
was the price?
Just his little.
It's fantastic. I think it's just really impressive how all of the non-English actors managed to deliver such fantastic English accents in this.
They do.
Brad Dourif especially. Like his line to Eowyn, like a morning of pale spring still clinging to winter's chill. So fair, so cold.
Oh, once again we see Rob is.
It's so well delivered, though.
He's trying so hard. Why won't she respond to him? I felt badly for Miranda Otto as Eowyn in this film. Only her job really is to wave a sword around a little bit. That's fine. But to be very pretty and to
love Aragorn.
To just every time Aragorn comes, just put her hands together. Oh, my Lord Aragorn. Who is that necklace from?
Hate that necklace.
And I thought that was... And how long she is in that scene with Grima without spitting at his face or clawing at him. Just like...
She does a great job as well, Miranda Otto.
She does. I think she's great.
She is really good. And again, in the appendices, she's like, I was told that I had to fall in love with this man. And then I saw Viggo Mortensen. And I was like, this is going to be really easy.
No acting required.
No.
And the mad thing to consider is that these women's roles are actually much bigger than they were in the books.
Yeah.
And there's still not much to them.
Yes. Oh dear.
There's the great scene in the extended version where, is it a great scene? Maybe not, but it's one I just remember fondly, where she cooks stew for everyone before they all get attacked by the wargs, and Aragorn doesn't like the stew.
Oh.
No one likes the stew. It's gross. And he tries to tip it away, and Eowyn immediately turns back round. And he's like, oh, and he, like, scolds his hand on it, and she just watches him eat it, and he's like, very, very lovely stew. Yeah,
I do remember that scene.
Yes,
and I thought that in terms of, you were kind of saying like almost Marvel style side eye, the line, and it reminds me of the they have a cave troll. And that kind of the drollness of that, which I really like, is Grima just saying, I told you to take a star.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that moment.
That bit is great. They're just the little hint of power when Gandalf just, that line as well. Keep your forked tongue behind your teeth. I have not travelled through fire and death to bandy creed words with a witless worm. And just puts the staff in front of him, and there's that little sound effect, that just a little subtle, and you just know good. Gandalf's in the room.
It's so good.
It's so great.
But then on the other hand, I was thinking they've that kind of contest of wills and all of the subtlety from the book, and then in this scene is like there's just some swarthy lads also walking up, and then they just have
a punch up,
fist fight around.
Legolas
Gandalf
does one where he's just like a backwards punch.
Fuck Legolas, man! Honestly, I can't believe I've become this guy. But we're skipping ahead. But yeah, there's bits of Legolas I would delete from the unstended version. Of this film.
It wouldn't have him surf down some stairs.
Oh. That was probably the least offensive bit. Like physically, at least that made a little bit of sense.
Jumping onto the horse.
The horse was just
the upside down.
Defies all logic how he was able.
And
to
I guess
do
the
that.
idea I've coped for this. For the 20 years now. And I've always been like, it's because the filmmaker's trying to show how inhumanly agile elves are. But there is no excuse. There is no excuse.
Yeah. It was the shield moment was just, I remember being in the cinema for that, and everyone just being like, "Oh,
That's
cool."
That's what it's for, isn't it? I mean, it's like when we talked about Romulus, and Alvarez was the director was saying, "This is why I put in where Andy says." Stay away from her, you bitch, because you're in a crowded house full of people who half remember aliens, and they go wild at that moment. And I understand. And in the cinema, I was, not on board. I think in the next movie, even at that time,
the next movie is too far. That's
what.
Last night I watched him go down some stairs on a shield, and I thought, oh man, I'm not sure. And then I remembered what was coming up in the next movie, and I thought, that's not so bad. Like it makes some sense, like Rob says.
I'm all for the shield bit. Just the way the heroic theme kicks in as he does it as well. That's the shot. That is the bit.
Makes it
His
worse.
actual best bit is when he arrows the rope on the big ladder that's coming up.
Yeah, well, he hasn't taken down the big Sparky boy, has he?
We did everything he could. He put 2 arrows in his neck.
Yeah, well.
He's just very focused on what he needed to do.
But
these are get that bomb to that
these
drain.
These are spoilers.
Yes.
But we're not there yet. What's happening now is they beat up the heavies. Grima is cast aside, and they unage Bernard Hill.
Yeah,
which is flipping great. I've met Bernard Hill.
Have you?
He's passed away now. My first assignment for official PlayStation 2 magazine, for a laugh, because there was some Lord of the Rings games, they got invited to a Lord of the Rings convention in Alexandra Palace. And I went, I had a cloak. Jay, my son, was about 5, maybe a bit less, and he had a cloak as well. And Bernard Hill was one of the people who was there. I remember I wrote some horrible, I'm a bit sad about it now actually, but I think I was just the piece I wrote was just being mean to all these nerds, just young man trying to be funny in a magazine. And I regret it all. And I would probably really enjoy if I could have that day again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would
rewrite it as the earnest,
in
your early 40s appreciator of Tolkien that you are now.
Exactly. And also I would get more from my meeting with Bernard Hill. I've got a picture with him, I think.
Right. I was going to say, what did you get with him? Like an autograph?
I didn't get off with him.
Oh, really? Oh, well. You should definitely go back in time and change that.
I held some large swords and just had a picture taken with him.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
it was
great.
cool. Yeah, I know. I went there with the wrong attitude, and I was snarky.
If you could meet anybody at a Lord of the Rings convention, any member of the cast, who would you most want to meet?
Ian McKellen.
Yes.
I don't know I don't know if you could meet the front of Elijah Wood. You've met the back of him before. As he was walking away from you.
I've seen the front of him.
Elijah! I love that story so much, Rob. I've told so many people that story. It's great. You should probably tell it now, just in case people don't know what we're talking about.
I've also met Andy Serkis and
Yes. True.
been on stage with Andy Serkis.
I know.
Don't talk to Andy Serkis about Gollum.
Do not mention Gollum. Do not mention the Lord of the Rings.
Those were the instructions.
It was fair enough.
Tell the Elijah Wood story very quickly.
I was at E3, I think it was 2018, and Elijah Wood was there to promote, I can't remember what he was promoting.
No.
He was promoting a game.
He was in a game, wasn't he, I think? Or...
It was the PlayStation Green Room. So I was doing like a Days Gone section. Oh, this happened right before I said the whole right soon.
You were thrown.
What a day.
You were thrown.
we should say Rob was presenting at E3 on the PlayStation live streams. And the green room is the backstage area where only people who are working on the show and
you have to have a special wristband to get in there.
And I walked in ready for my Days Gone segment, and I saw Elijah Wood there just talking to one of the sort of like tech staff.
He's such a man of the people.
And I was obviously like, oh my God, it's Elijah Wood. But I thought I should remain. You're here to work and not here to bother Elijah Wood.
Yeah, I'm cool.
He's not going to want. He's going to be walking around E3. He's probably going to get stopped just every 5 seconds by people being like, "Oh my God, Elijah Wood, can I have a photo?"
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not going to bother him. And then he walked out, and then my brain was just like, "When are you
what
ever?
Are you doing?
When
Mr.
are you,
Frodo?
When are you ever going to see Elijah Wood again?"
Yeah.
So I sort of half walked, half jogged after him. He was heading towards like the food area. I must have been about 5 or 6 feet behind him.
Oh, that's not far.
And I was like, Elijah? And I thought I saw him sort of slow down his walk ever so slightly. But I think he'd obviously decided to pretend he might not have heard me say him. And I said Elijah not quite loudly enough for it to be obvious. He could get away with ignoring me. And he did.
You gave him the rope, and he took it.
Fair enough. But the worst bit, I was like, okay, he's not heard me. That's fine. I'll just go back to the green room. I turned around and his entourage were all there. They'd all seen and heard me pathetically go, Elijah. And there's just this one guy, just obviously I can't do the look on the podcast, but he gave me such a pitying look.
Yeah.
It's like,
oh dear.
Yeah.
Twat. I'm going to go and have lunch with Elijah.
Is there anything you wanted to say to Elijah?
Yeah.
I can pass that message.
Pass it on.
No you Britished it. I can so clearly recognise every bit of the feelings that you were having.
100%.
I'm not going to bother him. We're both here for work. I don't want to be that guy. I'm never going to get this opportunity again. I don't just want to bowl up to him like everybody else. I'll just crawl away and die.
I hugely respect that you changed your mind and went to take your shot, because that's something I wouldn't do, and I just regret it forever.
And in a way,
that was silly. Why didn't I just go and speak to him? I just saw him speaking to lots of people.
Yeah.
And this story that Dave and I have told dozens and dozens of people, hundreds, thousands. We told it on live stream. It's worth more than meeting Elijah Wood.
Yeah.
That's the good thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we've been skirting around Helm's Deep somewhat, I think.
Like
have
the
we
orcs?
arrived?
Hey.
Yeah, very, very good. Have we arrived?
I think we've arrived.
Yes. Have we? Is there anything important to say? Brilliant Barrow scene.
We haven't talked about the wargs or anything, and I did.
I like the wargs. That's a new scene.
I was a bit confused. Oh,
Elijah!
I was a bit confused this time, just about Aragorn. Well, not confused, but just a bit sort of perplexed by Aragorn disappearing, and then just coming back.
I think there's a problem structurally with the Two Towers, and that really there's not a huge amount of exciting action that happens in it. So this whole middle of the movie bit where they fight the wargs and Aragorn sort of dies and for a bit is all a complete invention of Peter Jackson. And you can see why he's done it. You need something to happen at that point in the film. Yeah. I really like the warg fight. I think it's cool.
I like the fight. Yeah, it was more just Aragorn dying and then just coming back again. And I thought maybe does he go and I couldn't remember. I was like, does he go and have some sort of small adventure on his own? Does he meet someone? Does something happen? He meets that horse. And I really like that horse actor.
Aragorn bought that horse.
Really?
After the filming, I think.
I thought did a great job of waking him up and then helping him onto
Once
his back.
you've made out with a horse, you have
I
to
suppose
buy
I own you now.
The orc on the top of the cliff was good, wasn't he? That Legolas and Gimli interrogated.
Yeah, he was great.
Tumble off the cliff.
He was the one I was thinking he had
with the metal.
Yeah, and I think he had a cut in his face, or maybe that was, and it was just like green ooze was coming out.
I really liked the metal that had been hammered into his skull, just holding him together. It was great.
I love that. Well, also just imagine that scene, and we're gonna have to fix you with some metal.
Was that the one? I think that was the one who previously Saruman had gone up to and gone, "Send out your warg riders."
He was great. If it's just a different one,
he's just sitting there. I'd love to know what that orc's job is. Your job is to sit here and watch over the wargs until the wargs are sent out to kill someone.
So we've been recording...
Who are we killing today, lads? Women and children? Let's go.
Actually, no. I think they've got some guards with them, unfortunately.
It's hardened heroes.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Theoden King. Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn, son of Arathorn.
Yeah.
God.
The group level is extraordinarily high.
My warg's actually a little bit sick
Any
today.
chance of a pay rise, Saruman, for this, do you think?
Well, there'll be meat afterwards, at least.
There's meat on the menu.
But I was going to say before we get to Helm's Deep I can't remember if it was on this podcast. We've recorded so much lately, and we've been chatting about Lord of the Rings off as well. But did we discuss opportunities where revealed villains go? Was that on the podcast?
No, I don't think so.
We did.
Oh, God damn it. Because obviously Grima does a brilliant one where he's finally revealed.
Oh, yeah.
So does Gollum. Gollum does a big when he's caught by the men.
Why do they...
What did they steal?
Precious.
It's just a scream, isn't it?
Why
so
does
good.
Aragorn counsel to let Grima go?
Well,
Just because he's a good guy?
Because it's...
As in Aragorn,
He's
not
just
Grima.
doing I think he's doing like a Gandalf impression.
Right.
He's like, what would Gandalf do here? He'd be like, oh, I don't know if this maybe he's got some part to play yet, for good or ill. Who knows?
Yeah.
Don't kill him. Also, doesn't he say like, "Oh, enough blood has been spilt"? On his
he
account?
does.
That's what he said in the book. Like I said, Theoden isn't so. It's not so like, oh, I've woken up. It's
Right.
more like, oh, what's been going on? I've been making some bad decisions, and he's still quite fond of Grima in a way,
Right.
and he wants Grima to kind of prove that he. So Theoden says, Grima comes back in and he says, just let me stay by your side,
Yeah.
Mr. King. I sound like old Gollum. And Theoden says, actually, I've decided to go to war, and Grima's like, oh shit.
With who?
Yeah. And then he says, I see, I've come too late. There's nothing that can be done. You need someone to stay here and look after all of your belongings and prizes. And he says, no, you won't be staying here. So you can either come with me or be banished forever. And he says, all right, I'll see you later. So
Right.
it's more that there's
I
no-
It was
choose
never on the
banishment.
cards. Yeah, never on the cards for him to be killed in the book.
And all of the company are saying, he's going to go straight to Saruman.
Yeah.
And
But what's he
going
going to tell them? The one weak point at Helm's Deep?
we never see Grima again in the theatrical versions, do we?
Well, we see him when he cries at the reveal of all of the Uruk-hai.
I thought that was quite a nice note about his sort of ambivalence, and because play forward to the end of he survives all the way to the end of Return of the King in the books, and the fate of Grima is that maybe this is one instance where the books are actually much worse. You go back to the Shire. The Shire has been taken over by
Scouring of the Shire.
by awful people, and they scour the Shire to get rid of them. Is a gangster called Sharky. Sharky is
George.
actually Saruman in disguise.
Oh, no.
And he has it's awful what happens to Grima. He has Grima as like his like little right hand man, and they become like these base horrible figures. Frodo turns up, and they're all +10 intimidation now.
Yeah.
So they're just like, you've got to go. And Saruman's like, I hate you, and he tries to stab him. Frodo still won't kill him. Saruman says, oh, I see. You've shown me pity. And he says, basically says, you're very worthy now. And he says, and I hate you for it.
Wow.
And then he leaves, and they say, Grima, you don't have to go with him. And then they say, oh, yes, he does. Tell them what you did, Grima. And Grima has killed Frodo's cousin, he's murdered him in his sleep. And Grima says, you told me to do it. And he's just this cursed, awful figure.
No.
So that's what happens to Grima anyway.
Blimey.
So it's probably best that none of that's in the movies, isn't it? It's a bit rubbish.
Yeah.
I was glad. We couldn't have done... I mean, I'm not one for all these stupid jokes about
The endings.
The endings. It has an ending.
It does.
There's a long ending.
It's a long ending.
I was going to make that
deserved
joke.
ending.
I was going to make that joke. I'll save it for the next podcast.
You're wrong. It's like the people who say on the menu, it's idiots.
Let me tell you,
Idiots
when
in
you've
mind.
gone to the midnight opening showing and it's like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
You're hoping for the end, and it
No, you're
it's
not.
like fades to black like 3 times.
You're
The
saying
end.
in respect of the 3 years and the that I've devoted to this, the countless years that the other people have, the magnificence of these films, I will let them take as long as they need to say goodbye. That's
Well,
what you're
This is a conversation for the next podcast, so look forward to that, listeners.
anyway. Helm's
There's
Deep.
a Treebeard line there somewhere, isn't there? Helm's Deep. We're there.
It's good.
We're
isn't
at
it?
Helm's Deep. They've all got to Helm's Deep. There's that lovely scene where that mother is reunited with her 2 children.
Yeah.
They don't play too much on that either. It just happens.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just enough.
It's full of frail, old, sick people who all have to go in the caves
I'd be in Helm's Deep.
to be protected.
There's that boy who sounds much younger than he looks.
Who are you, son? I'm Harmer's son.
Yeah, it always surprises me.
Son of Hammermine,
Yeah, I always expect him to sound older than
the men
than
are
he
saying
does.
we won't last the night.
Well, they're not. There's tons of memes about the conversation that Legolas has with Aragorn when they're talking Elvish.
Yeah.
And then
Aragorn really dumps him in it, doesn't
it
he?
just says,
It's-
well, I will die as one of them. And everyone's like, what is he saying?
What were you saying? You'll die as one of who?
What's the elf saying?
The orcs.
my favourite is the Joey from Friends meme, where he's like, he's got the everything's okay face. And then as soon as Aragorn says that I should die as one of them, it's Joey with his surprised
Yeah.
face.
I like Aragorn tries to. What's the boy's name? You just said it.
Haleth.
Haleth. I like that he tries to comfort him, but also his sword is clearly terrible. I just wonder how bad a sword he go. This is a good sword.
It's just the McDonald's
Great
straw.
sword. Oh, I wish I could swap my sword with this one.
I did think when he gets his sword out on the parapet, and it's like, that is a fucking incredible thing. And Alice must be looking up going, fucking nice. It's way better than mine.
Yeah. The pointy end at the orcs doesn't have a pointy end.
It's just a strip of dented metal. You may as well be taking a spoon into battle, Haleth. I really like that interaction between the two of them, though. Like,
I do.
Aragorn,
It's
he's got so much. Everyone is despairing. Even Legolas, like a 2,000-3,000 year old elf who should know better, is despairing. I didn't like the bit when Gimli said, "Let him go, lad." Lad, you don't call Legolas lad.
Yeah,
He's
that's true.
3,000 years old.
Yeah,
It's not lad. But Aragorn,
Goodness me.
Aragorn is he's got the Gandalf role here. Like, he's the only person trying to uplift anybody, and his line, "There is always hope." Again, in the appendices, when they're talking about Tolkien, they're talking about how apparently Tolkien said, and I can't back this up anywhere, but apparently Tolkien didn't believe in despair because he was of the opinion that if you were despairing, then he's like, no one can predict the future. You can't. There's no point in despairing because you never know with 100% certainty whether things are going to be awful. So there is always hope. That sort of, even if it's like the tiniest little flicker of hope, there's still always hope. And I like how Aragorn is basically given that sentiment. He's given that line. He is Tolkien essentially in Helm's Deep, lifting up the men, igniting their hope.
The thing which I love the most from the film, and then I like it in the book as well, is actually watching it this time, Theoden's despair was less palatable to me because I wanted having been restored. There's that great line, you would remember your hand would remember its strength better if you held your sword. And he then becomes very much a kind of a figure from an old Norse kind of poem, and he's like, I'm going to live up to he's all about lineage and heritage and legacy and all of those things. And then in the Helm's Deep, he's a bit sad, and he's just like super, super sad.
Before that, he's a little bit full of bravado as well. Is this everything? Is this all they've got? I was like, oh, come on,
don't say that.
Yeah, no one should ever say that.
You can't say that.
But then he does get a bit sad.
This is that they're punching it up and punching it down, aren't they, to ride our emotions. But the poem that he says, but he only says a few lines of it, and I think it's a poem that was adapted from I think it's a Saxon poem that Tolkien liked, and it's this lament. But in the book, Aragorn tells it to the company as they're travelling either to Helm's Deep or through Rohan. It's just really nice, isn't it? Where now the horse and the rider.
It is nice,
and it's again about it's supposed to be like a traditional Rohan poem, I think. But it's already about the days have gone down in the West. It is about the diminishing of men. There's like a real kind of overarching fatalism to this whole thing. So see, Theoden and Bernard Hill is fucking brilliant, and he's brilliant when he's sad at his son's grave, and he's brilliant when he is saying those lines. I'd love it if there was a full reciting of that poem by him. But it's the days have gone down in the West behind the mountain into shadow. It's like, it's my fave.
I was sort of almost a little bit moved last night by the elves turning up, and it just really hit me when they're like, "You must send out riders," and he's like, "To who?" Like, no one's coming. Like, not Gondor don't care. The elves I haven't spoken to them in years. Like, no chance. Like, we're just going to die here, or not. But we're going to be, by ourselves. And when they turn up, it was I just really loved it. I thought it was excellent, and you can see there's a palpable sense of everyone being like, they look amazing. Obviously, they're also together compared to a
whole squad of level 25 elves
they are,
have just arrived.
It's just great, and
they all turn in exactly the same way. I like that in these films, we've never seen them fight. You see the flashback right at the beginning of the first film, but they're very much on the way out. You know, they're packing up their boxes. The van's outside, and you never get to see them in action. And then suddenly you get a sense of the strength of the elves. And yes, they're enlightened and elegant, but also they're very capable as well.
Yeah.
You'd be annoyed though, weren't you, if you were in that group of 50?
Yeah.
So seriously, everyone else is going to the Undying
So
Lands.
you guys are living
I'm
forever.
going, to Helm's Deep? You want to fight? And how many Erikai? 10,000.
Yeah.
Who's on our team?
Some women and
Halat?
children.
Have you heard of Halat?
The son of Hammermine with a very good sword.
That kid's got 6
Aragorn,
swords.
son of Arathor.
Actually, lads, we're going to be fine.
But when Bernard Hill's reciting that lament, I love the juxtaposition there between shots of incredibly imposing looking Uruk-hai and shots of incredibly frightened looking boys having massive helmets put on their heads.
Yeah.
It's very effective, very harrowing.
Yeah.
It's good, isn't it?
Yes. It made me think about being called up for war.
Yeah.
In our world,
just wouldn't.
it'd be awful. God, it'd be awful.
I'm too old now.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I'd literally be in Helm's Deep. It'd be fine. I'd be in a subway
Whatever
station.
alternative there is, going to prison, running away.
Those are the alternatives.
Running away, then going to prison.
Pick either one. Yeah.
You've nailed it there. Yeah, those elves, again, I'm going to stop being not in the book guy, but they are not in the book.
Oh, really?
And the idea is that I think that Tolkien was just clear on men are standing alone. There is no last alliance this time. And that's something of the past. And this is to begin the age of man and however long that may last.
So the elf, and I don't know his name, who leads the company
Haldir.
and is killed, is not from the books either.
I don't think he appears in the books. He certainly doesn't do this in the books. But you're right. I it's one of the things I kind of love about just one little flash of the Last Alliance.
Yeah, it's you just want, it's what you always want, isn't it? You want that. We've all got our differences. We've all, but you want the belief that the world, talking about our own world, like that there is a higher importance. There's some things that are more important than whatever, and that people can just come together at the right moment. It's a great movie moment, I think, and I really, really appreciate it.
And when the action starts, I still think this is probably. I've seen versions of this scene and action scenes. I think this is still for me the best kind of siege thing I've ever seen in cinema. It's
so well directed. Like I think we said on the previous bonus episode when we were talking about Bakshi's Lord of the Rings. It's so impeccable. It's such a intimidating undertaking, I would imagine, for a director to not only have to pace this really well, but to make it exciting, to bring out little pockets of peril throughout, have this massive thing going on at all times. You're constantly looking back to the women and the children in the caves. No, there's the stakes. Here's who's coming to attack them. And then there's all these other little
Well, there's
little
a geography as well. It's like, we've got a castle, we've got this big wall, and there's a little small path.
The little path that goes up, and you've got some Uruk-hai coming up there. They're coming. Ladders are coming. Then you've got the elven archers there. Oh, I just love it. And then the wall explodes, and you've got Aragorn going to save Gimli down there. Then it's the little just bursts of humour that sprinkled in as well. It's Gimli just got, he can't see over the wall. What's going on out there? Would you like to get your box?
Is it in the next movie? I Never Thought I'd Die Side by Side?
Yeah.
That's not in there.
That's right at the end of The Return of the King. Yeah.
2 already.
Legolas, 2 already. I'm on 17. And then I believe in the extended cut, they reveal the final totals to each other. And they don't. It was quite disappointing, actually. Neither of them make it to 50.
Oh.
I was like, Legolas, you'd already got 17 by right at the beginning. What are you doing for the rest
Legolas
of the
doesn't
fight?
need to be next to anybody to kill them, whereas Gimli has to be next to them.
He has to do melee kills. Gimli's only got melee.
Maybe he twisted his ankle.
Legolas has got ranged.
Maybe that's what happened. That did happen in the book.
What's that?
The count. The stupid competition is not an invention.
I like it.
Toss me in the...
Toss me.
It doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't make sense.
He's heavy as hell.
That Aragorn, with one arm, can throw Gimli further than Gimli's legs can make him jump.
You're correct.
Maybe
anyway.
if he's
he's
when you've got to jump as well, and I'll give you an extra
he's got
toss.
to run and jump, and
It's the old blood of the men of the West. It's given him incredible dwarf tossing strength.
Yes, great. One of my favourite lines is "Don't tell the elf." I love that line because it just it's just such a familiarity and a friendship between those three already. Everyone knows what's going on there.
Yeah, the stakes for Gimli.
Aragorn's like, don't worry, not a word. I won't tell the elf.
I loved that bit in the first time I ever saw it, and I don't know, with my old eyes, I enjoy that sort of just sort of bravado stuff less, I guess. But like the stand that they make on that small path up to the gate, it was my favourite bit about Helm's Deep for ages. Just jumping in and then single-handedly barring the way. Great stuff.
My favourite bit is when Aragorn leaps down to save Gimli.
I was certain you were going to say on a shield there. When he leaps onto a shield down some steps.
He leaps down. He's got all the elven archers behind him. He's like, and the arrows all fly into the Uruk-hai. And then he does a charge thing. It's almost cartoonish where Aragorn sort of like steps back a little bit and then zooms forward. There's a really pleasing cartoonish momentum to it. It's like, charge! And they all go in. Oh, it's so good.
I really like... I love the arrival of the Uruk-hai and just... it's so imposing and terrifying, and they just all stop and they're just like stamping or whatever it is, banging their drums, and that one old guy who looses an arrow.
Why is it bad?
I wanted that as
they're
well.
In range, guys.
Hold your fight. What are you doing?
There's 10,000 of them. We need to kill 10,000 of them.
And it's a cracking shot right at the neck.
I love that bit.
Brilliant
I can't
shot.
watch that bit without in my brain every time thinking 1-0.
Yeah. For God's sake.
Shrewsbury have taken a 1-0 lead
They've taken
in the
an early
5th minute against Man City in the third round of the FA Cup.
That's why we love the FA Cup.
Can they hold on for the full 90?
Giant killers.
I do love it. Again, it's just a lovely little punch of humour.
Yeah.
Not even humour, just something, just a release of tension before the main event happens.
I do also love thinking about the guy whose job it is to explode the wall, who Legolas, it is surprising, doesn't take him down. Very disappointing, actually.
Yeah.
He should be doing better.
Be an eye shot.
Don't shoot his legs or something. Just slow him down. But I love just thinking about. I love his crazy run. Like just.
To be fair to Legolas, Aragorn has explicitly said that armour is weak at the neck.
He's not wearing any armour.
Yeah.
He's got his top off.
Arrows through his neck.
He does.
Too.
I'm saying I would have been stopped. But this guy was determined.
This is like the Boromir of the Uruk-hai.
No! I suppose when you're choosing the guy who has to explode the wall, like he needs to. That's exactly who you need.
Johnny
like, you're going to get
mental.
shot.
We need to.
And then you are going to be blown up.
Be exploded, so don't worry about
Well,
it.
this was because they had 4 of them brought in the big bombs and set them underneath. And then I was thinking,
why don't you just one of you stay behind? Last one out has to do
just
it.
Just get the torch and lob it.
Yeah.
Lob it
There
in
are
there.
loads of better ways to do it. Loads of better ways. I like
they
this
were
way.
successful.
It was good.
in
They
their
were
plan.
successful. Although I also enjoyed the massive bits of rock that go out and
brilliant.
like
The
crush a
scale of that
legion.
stuff.
It's so
that
good.
is, again, like watching this at the cinema for the first time, the thing that we always used to talk about was just the scale from Moria to this. The thumping sounds of those rocks hitting the ground and the devastation that they kind of wreak on the floor.
There's a couple of little Uruk-hai and Rohan's soldiers just spinning through the air as well.
Yeah.
Bernard Hill's face. What?
Yeah. That's after he's just said, "That's all you can conjure, Saruman."
Yeah. It reminds me of the best film ever made, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, when they are rescuing the merry men from the sheriff from Nottingham, and Alan Rickman does a very in the face of an explosion does a very good. What is this face?
Well, we need to wrap this up. We've been talking for too long.
We've been
like we are the Ents, basically. At the end.
We've been called that before.
We need to talk about the heroic finale, both Gandalf and Éomer arriving, but also the Ents smashing up Isengard.
I would just say one thing about the Gandalf scene. That hill's fucking steep, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
it's
I maybe feel a bit
preposterously
sick, yeah.
steep. It's like a roller coaster they're about to go down before the charge gets going. That was the scene I was most looking forward to, and it's a bit of a play. And I know people talk about this, but the trailer that they put out a few months before the film came out, and it had the orchestral version of the theme from oh my word, the Requiem for a Dream.
Right.
And it had, and the music isn't in the film; it's for a different film entirely. And it had the Rohirrim riding down the hill. It's kind of giving away the end of the film in a way, but nothing has made me want to see a film more than that.
Right.
It was incredible, and just seeing Gandalf in battle, like the new Gandalf the White, absolutely tearing it up on Shadowfax. That charge, the sunlight blinding the Uruk-hai just for a second as the wave hits them, is unbelievable. And I was thinking during this film, like I said, I didn't enjoy it as much as I have in the past. But I think that's because in the past I've been less familiar, and then the end is incredible, and the end is still incredible.
Yeah, the end is incredible, and
love it.
Yeah, I really loved the sunlight aspect. Not just that they've turned up, but with the sun beaming down at that precise moment. It's just so good,
isn't it?
and it's quite symbolic.
As well. He was like, "I'll be there at dawn on the 5th day."
He knows how quick
knows
that
how
horse is.
I'm going to use the dawn. You watch what I do with the dawn.
Yeah.
He found the
Speed equals
the
distance over
Rohirrim, on the 3rd day, and they were, "Let's go," and he was like, "No, no, no."
The 5th day.
Hold your horses, literally hold your horses.
The ride out was perilous. I wasn't sure. And it's a last desperate act, and it's heroic.
I still don't quite get it. I get it only in terms of let's go out fighting, I guess.
Roll of the dice.
But they don't quite say that either. It's sort of somewhere in
I
between.
always imagine the line from earlier on. If this is to be our end, then let's make it such an end.
Right.
And I think in the book it is.
That's a great line.
Not that people will tell tales in the book. It's that people will sing a song about us.
Right.
And that to me is why they do it. It's like, fuck
I
it.
can get that. I mean, what are you going to do? Stand in here and die? Like, what's the point in that?
Theoden King said, fuck it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Gimli with a big blast on the horn.
Ah,
Yeah.
I love that. I'm a big dwarf guy. My Warhammer army was dwarves.
You're a small dwarf guy.
I was dwarf. I was a dwarf in World of Warcraft. I love Gimli. So I love how much he loves the rocks in Helm's Deep. He talks about being like, this is good stone. And getting him to blow the horn.
I love the power of a horn. It's just, what's it for? Why is he doing it?
It's a herald.
It's cool.
Wow.
Just cool.
There are some great horns in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, there are.
Fantastic.
And the description of by Tolkien of them is often, they've got like a divinity to them. The music and the sound that comes from them.
The Horn of Gondor's great.
Yes.
Oh, so what a thing.
Yeah.
Ents, I love the I enjoyed this more. I love the Ents wrecking it up. They're so strong, and it's like the potential power that lives in nature and in trees.
Yes.
And now it gets to wreck shit up.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, and water.
I really like the just imagining that water going into the ground to the underground bit and cooling all of the sort of lava flows and whatever.
That bit where he says, "Break the dam, release the river."
Yeah.
It lives in my head a lot because it's the line you get in, I think, the last level of the Two Towers video game.
Is it before a hard bit?
Just after a really hard bit. And it means you've done it. You've done the really hard bit. It's really hard to break the dam and release the river in the video
There's so
game.
many lines that you hear so much because they say it just before you do it, but you can't do.
Unskippable cutscene.
God damn it.
Introducing a boss.
There's a ridiculous pleasure. There's the symbolism of they use it's wood and water and they're destroying the machinations of Saruman. Of course, the steam is incredibly satisfying coming up from the depths of the earth. But as much as anything, I love that all the little men are just swept away.
Yeah.
And the Ents are like, I've got roots. I'm fucking huge. I'm standing up and you're dead.
Yeah.
The on fire Ent rushing in, dunking his
dunking
head.
his head
I
in.
love it.
That is a great moment. I do love that.
Yeah. And
Everyone in
Saruman.
the cinema laughed at that when I was watching.
That I can get on board.
Saruman just looking like a doddery old man.
What can you do against such reckless
And where's Screamer?
nature?
As
eh?
he's still inside. He doesn't have a clue what's going on outside.
On the
just like
toilet
last
maybe
time.
at that bit.
He's just like, oh god.
Let's go and become gangsters in the Shire.
Yeah. What the hell happened out here? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what an ending.
Yes.
What an ending.
It is a fantastic ending.
And then the final thing, which we already touched on, was the speech, Sam's speech,
Yes.
which I can't remember where it comes from. I think it is, taken from other lines in the. You were telling me about this the other day, Rob. But I love that speech, even though I've got reservations about Sean Astin's accent and this whole performance about Sam in some respects. That speech is one of the things I love the most about the trilogy. Just the truth of that. It's so nice, and it might be like a more popularized version, but it's essentially the feeling of Tolkien's work that small people have a part to play in the biggest stories.
Yeah.
Love it.
They had a lot of trouble apparently finishing that line
Oh.
when he says, the people in those stories, they kept going because they were holding on to something. And Frodo says, "Oh, what are we holding on to, Sam?" And there's a great bit in the appendices where Philippa Boyens is like, "What the hell were they holding on to? How do we finish this?"
I thought you were saying it was so emotional they couldn't get it out. There's some good in the world.
Yeah, and it's very simple, isn't it? But it just works quite nicely, I think.
Yeah, it does. It's great. And then the section where Sam gets a bit of credit for how much of a prick Frodo's been throughout the entire film. Couldn't have done without his Sam. Sam was the brave.
Don't take the piss, Mr. Frodo.
I wasn't.
Been frying you sausages all the way since fucking Buckland.
Oh, where's Gollum?
He's there plotting to kill everyone. Great ending.
Great ending.
Lovely ending. I was a bit sad last time when I asked the questions about who did the worst performance and what was the worst scene. So we've just gone back to normal this time. I'm not interested in dunking on the Two Towers. No. I've already mentioned I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed watching it the least I think I ever have on this showing, but I still would have given it a nice hearty 9 out of 10.
Oh,
it's fantastic.
Same.
Great film. So let's just do the classic questions. What's the best scene?
Oh, God.
Or your favourite scene?
The Two Towers. I think for me, it's the lament of the room where now the horse and the rider. Just such a again, like the language that Tolkien uses is kind of this symbolic, non-literal, slightly abstract. And there's a vagueness to it which makes it kind of more generally meaningful. Like, what horse and what rider? What are they doing? Where are they going? What's happening? It raises as many questions as it answers. But I love that whole.
I regularly use that line of Theoden's to lament the decline of anything. Sometimes the games industry. The days have gone down in the West.
Yeah,
it's great, isn't it? Dave, what about you?
I don't know. It's really difficult. I'd probably maybe the opening of the Battle of Helm's Deep, as in when the Uruk-hai arrived. That whole bit, they've just had the preparation, seeing them arrive, their numbers, everyone's scared. That guy loosing his arrow early, and
the rain starting. We didn't even mention.
The rain starting's fantastic. I love the way he looks at it. It's like.
Is it good or bad? I don't even know. It's got to be worse for the attackers. Anyway,
you'd think so. Yeah. How about
you want the pitch to be in bad condition?
Yeah, they've watered the pitch.
Yeah, and they've nicked an early one.
Like those two are very good answers. My answer's a bit childish, but I just like the bit at the beginning when Gandalf falls down and fights the Balrog.
Yeah,
that's just so good. When I first got the DVD, I would literally just go back. I would watch that scene over and over. Especially it's the first moment as well. It's the first camera swoop that catches you off guard when you first see it.
Yeah.
It's like, I know what happens here. Oh, wait, we're going down. Yeah. The start of the music, the sound of Glamdring, like whistling through the air. And Gandalf catches it, and the music just rises to this ridiculous crescendo. Oh my God, it's good. I love it so much.
In the second part of the fight, halfway through the film, and he puts Glamdring in the air. And he seems to absorb a lightning bolt and then just applies it.
Yes, applies it to the Balrog.
There you go.
Ouch.
He's using an environmental takedown.
It is, yeah. Weak to electricity.
Yeah. Apply lightning to weapon.
Yeah, he's doing like a combo move. So good. The whole, I'd love to, man, what a fight. What a fight, Gandalf versus the Balrog. I always moan about Gandalf versus the Witch King in Return of the King, which we won't be watching because it's not in the theatrical cut.
Right, yes.
Good. Because he wouldn't lose to the Witch King.
Well, he's untested.
Just wouldn't lose. He's not untested against, he may be untested against the Witch King.
No,
but the Balrog's more powerful than the Witch King.
He is.
I mean, we're at the stage now where it's like, 40-year-old men Googling power levels.
Back at the playground, yeah.
Gandalf the White has a power level of 9,000. He wouldn't. Gandalf the Grey beats the Balrog. Gandalf the White is not going to lose to the Witch King.
I can't tell
at what point does he become one?
Anyway, standout performance. Let's do it for the Fellowship quickly as well, because we should have done this last time.
For the Fellowship.
And the Two Towers.
I don't know why I sung that. For me, I think it's Sean Bean. Sean Bean is Boromir.
Oh, Sean Bean's great.
I had a conversation with someone about our podcast, And I started to remember Boromir, and he was like, that bit where you were all crying. And I was like, you're going to say we're idiots? And he was like, I loved it. And then I was like, started to remember why. And then I was nearly crying.
Who
was
look
this
sad
you were
now,
speaking
mate.
I am sad now.
Who was this you were speaking to?
Gareth, our friend Gareth.
Oh.
Hello. This would be a good test.
If there's one man who I'd literally cry in front of and be fine with it, it'd be Gareth.
We did have quite a deep chat that evening. Yes, it's a good test that if Gareth does actually listen to our podcast.
Yeah, I don't believe him. I don't believe him.
What about you, Rob?
I think for me, Fellowship's all about Gandalf and Ian McKellen for me.
Yeah, I
Ian
agree.
McKellen is the one who makes me cry in Fellowship. Just, the line is so good. So do all who live to see such. It's fantastic.
The depth of it, we said it last time, but the depth of his feeling conveyed in just the sympathy for the hobbits, just in the...
Big Gandalf face. I love it too. Totally agree. Like I said, just him sat by a fire. He's just doing so much all the time.
He's amazing. That is Gandalf. That's my Gandalf in the Fellowship of the Ring. Two Towers, I would have to give it to Andy Serkis. I think the Two Towers is the film of Gollum, whereas the Fellowship is the film of Gandalf.
Yes.
I think that's fair.
Oh, but I would shout out, obviously, Bernard Hill. Particularly just that scene when he's crying.
We're talking about Bernard Hill a lot more in the next episode.
When an actor doesn't get an Oscar one year because they
know he's getting
year.
it next time.
Honestly, though, that scene where he's crying in the barrow, by the barrow.
It is great.
It just really got me this time. It's so I believed every inch of that performance. If that's something you can do, it was just very moving.
That I should live to see the last days of my house.
Yeah.
I just I've thought about this. It brought it home to me in a real way of just no parent should ever have to bury their child, and just the unnaturalness of that, because there's like a sense of the rightness of the order of things.
Yeah.
And it's been disrupted by this awful period of time.
Yeah. It's horrible, and it's just horrible that he wasn't really there to see it as well,
No.
He wakes up from this fog. And
It's kind of tragic. He was told by Eowyn, it's like, your son's here. He's dying.
Yeah.
Will you not go to him?
Will you not go to him? Yeah.
Will you do nothing? Yeah.
Also have a bath or something you smell.
Spray him down.
Grima, can you at least convince him to have a bath?
Grima's not a big bath guy. I think we can all agree.
What about you two? You've gone for Bernard Hill. What about
I
you,
think
Nate?
so.
In this film, you've taken Big Bernie. That's
Well, you
can
can
join.
also have Big Bernie.
difficult to look beyond Bernard Hill, just because of for those two scenes, the poem and the if not, then I think Aragorn is he's taken over the leadership of the Fellowship, or what remains of it, and I think he's extraordinary in the whole trilogy.
Best line.
Oh God. They've taken the hobbits to Isengard. Or they're taking the hobbits.
I always struggle with the best line bit because
Yeah.
as soon as you ask me what the best line is, I suddenly forget.
I can't
all
think
of
of
the
any
lines.
lines, no.
But there are so many.
Yeah.
I love. It's got to be. I smoked his ruin on the mountain song.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Well, why are we even talking about it? It's a landslide.
I'm happy to agree with that. Yeah, that is fantastic.
His ruin. Oh,
Well, I think that does bring us to the end of the Two Towers.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to look back on the whole trilogy when we've finished it, and maybe we can have a little go at ranking the three movies, because the Two Towers used to be my favourite of the trilogy.
Same.
And I'm not sure it is
so
anymore.
strong.
Helm's Deep is fantastic. I do genuinely think Helm's Deep is the greatest battle scene I've ever seen in any film.
Yeah, it's proper good. Isn't it?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So there we go. Please do continue to send us in some mail. I promise at some point
We've spoken too long again.
We'll read out some mailbag. Because
We've had some really great
We have had some
mailbags
great
as well.
mailbag.
And we are reading it all, even if we're not reading it all out.
We will read
find
it
a
out.
way.
Yeah. We will find a way.
We're really slammed with trying to get everything done before Christmas, but we'll find a way.
If you alone do not find a way to read the mailbag, no one will.
That's true.
This task has been appointed to you.
Yes.
The mailbag. Read it. But we will read it, so please keep
I wish the
sending
mail
us.
had never come to me.
Please. No, I wish it keeps coming in. There have been some great emails, and we are reading them, and we will read them out. So please do continue to send them in to registercinemaclub@gmail.com. If you would like access to 2 bonus episodes a month and our monthly newsletter, and you're not yet a member of our Patreon, please do sign up for that. There's a special commander tier where you get access to those 2 bonus episodes a month. Otherwise, we're on social media as well, so please do give us a follow on X or on Blue Sky. Tweet us, Blue Sky us. We love chatting with you. We will be back next week with our Return of the King episode, which I'm very excited about.
Me too.
We will see you then. Farewell. You've been listening to Red Shirt Cinema Club. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just check the link in the description. We'd also love to hear from you. Email us at redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com or follow us on social media. We'll be back with another episode next Monday. See you then.